Guerrilla cricket. Whoa. Guerrilla cricket. Whoa. Guerrilla. Take large man the barricades, patrol the cover boundary. At last the time is come, this is a cricketing emergency. Hear this call to arms for every cricket revolutionary. Take up your bats and stones for the test match insurgency. At first they tried to silence us, but we would not be silenced. They threatened us with lies, so we threatened them with violence. Che Guevara, Sangakkara, Joseph Stalin, Douglas Jardine, Robespierre, Darrell Hare, Vladimir Lenin, O'Brien Kevin, guerrilla cricket. It's not about the winning, it's about how many rules you break. Even in cricket commentary, this is the best advice to take. Pick guerrilla cricket, it's the finest choice you'll ever make. There's so much more to cricket than rev counters and a slice of cake. At first they tried to sanitize us and clean up our act, but people like it filthy, and we know that for a fact. Fidel Castro, Lenny Pascoe, Carlos the Jackal, Umar Akmal, Mahatma Gandhi, Grant and Andy, Brendan Behan, Austin Ian, guerrilla cricket. Stick with us, cause you know we're not the kind of thing that you see on the TV and the radio. So vive la revolution. First they tried to buy us, but we would not be bought. Okay, we were, but then we ran away, and we will not be caught. Would not give up the ghost when they left us all for dead. They decapitated us, but we just grew another head. Chairman Mao, Jamie Howe, Ho Chi Minh, Asif Din, Václav Havel, Graham Saville, No Surrender, Percy Fender, Che Guevara, Sangakkara, Joseph Stalin, Douglas Jardine, Robespierre, Darrell Hare, Vladimir Lenin, O'Brien Kevin, guerrilla cricket.
Do you know Mark Wood? He is an England bowler, quite good, but also one so injury prone that he has played only 13 tests in 5 years. But now he gets to play a 14th. Can he be Jimmy Anderson and Jofra Archer rolled into one? It's one apiece going into today's third test at the first ground outside England and Australia to have staged a test match. In 1889, England came to Port Elizabeth, and here they are again. Good morning, good afternoon, good dawn, good dusk, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Guerrilla Cricket. My name is Gorilla Hendo, Nigel Henderson, and I am surrounded by men of wisdom and great bulk. The wisdom is to my right, that's Nakul Mpandi. The bulk is to my left. It's Gary Naylor, and also the bear, who is sort of just doing a few technical things to make sure that Gary has everything he needs. And the news is, from a sunny St George's Park, that England have won the toss and will bat. They have made just the one change. Mark Wood, as we said at the outset of the programme, comes in for Jimmy Anderson. And for South Africa, there's a new cap. It's Dane Patterson coming in for Dwayne Pretorius. And the full teams will be read to you now by the great wise man that is Nakul Mpandi.
Morning, Hendo. Morning, Gary. Hello, everybody. Yeah, Faf du Plessis losing his 6th toss in a row. Yeah, South Africa going with Dean Elgar and Pieter Malan opening. Zubair Hamza at 3, captain Faf du Plessis at 4, at 5 Rossi van der Dussen, at 6 Quinton de Kock, at 7 Vernon Philander, 8, Kesha Maharaj. 9, that debutant 30-year-old Cape Tonian seamer Dane Patterson. Kagiso Rabada at 10, Ulrich Norkia at 11. For England, Zach Crawley and Dom Sibley will open.
Hurrah!
Joe Denley will bat 3.
Hurrah!
Joe Root, the captain, is at 4. Ben Stokes at 5. Ollie Pope at 6. Keeper Josh Butler at 7. Sam Curran at 8. Dominic Bess at 9. Mark Wood at 10. And Stuart Broad at 11. The standing umpires are both Australian, Messrs Bruce Oxenford, Sans Oxenshield, and Rock and Roll Rod Tucker.
Imagine letting 2 Australians take charge of an England test. That's an outrage, I tell you. Good morning, Gary. How are you this morning?
Well, I'm in mid-season form, Hendo, and
Mid-season, okay.
I'm delighted to be here. The dawn is now broken over southeast London, and I'm very much looking forward to this test match. I think
Aren't we all?
both sides look stronger in the bowling than in the batting.
Do you think?
So
Do you think?
we can expect 650 for 3 plays, 740 for 6 and a draw.
Well, you know how difficult it is to read pitches, but we've been being told all week that this is going to be a slow turner, which means we've got Dominic Bess as the front line England spinner. We've got Maharaj as the front line South African spinner. Is it going to be that kind of game where Joe Denley gets 100 and takes a fifer?
Well, I mean, the spinners have a reasonable record at Port Elizabeth in the last 5 years, averaging 35, which by South African standards is not too bad. I think we did a podcast yesterday, which you might hear over the course of this test. We released it yesterday, where I was talking to Daniel Gallen, and among other things, we're talking about this pitch. And it is slow by South African standard. It's not the bounce and life that you get at the Wanderers or at Centurion, but there is life in it for the seam bowlers, and there's a strong cross breeze which will aid swing, we believe. And if there is any turn, it'll be later in the day, but the average first innings score here in the last sort of 10 years or so is admittedly kind of slightly skewed by a couple of big first innings, is over 400.
Well, there you go. So England want to put runs on the board and maybe only bat once. We'll see about that.
2 of the men who'll be first up looking to put those runs on the board are these 2.
Zach Crawley was a cricket player, a damn good cricket player. But he was moved from the middle order to open the batting. Now, trapped in the English professional cricket circuit, Zach Crawley must fight to survive.
Well, let's see, can he survive the first ball, which is being bowled by Vernon Philander? And that was very gentle. He goes on to the back foot and just plays it square. Actually, the pitch looks much the same colour as the outfield, to be honest.
Spot the pitch.
That's right, absolutely. I'm not going to say that it's incredibly green, because that would be suggesting that the outfield is incredibly green, which it isn't. But it's it's sort of, you're not aware of a square, are you? Really, as you sometimes are at other grounds. Anyway, Zach Crawley, I thought played well in the second innings, got England off to a good start at Cape Town. He's waiting for Philander again. 6 wickets in this series. This one jags back in, but starts too straight, so it ended up hitting him on the thigh, going down the leg side, falls out into the offside, and there is no run.
Vernon Philander, you say?
I do.
You first get the fear when he strides to the pitch, and that look right there tells you he's got the itch. The best you could hope for is to nick over slips off Big Bird. They call him the surgeon, the bowling machine. Surgically tear out your stumps real clean. He'll make you...
He's in, bowls to Crawley, finds the outside edge, but he played it with soft hands and it goes straight to ground, taken by Elgar on the bounce at third slip. Now, close up of the pitch there, it looks extraordinarily dry. Looks like there's been a drought there. It looks very dry on the top. If it starts that dry, it could be interesting.
I mean, the Cape has had severe rainfall problems over the last few years. I think they've lessened recently, but certainly Cape Town was in the middle of a really horrible drought a year or so ago.
We're in the Eastern Cape.
We are in the Eastern Cape. We're quite a bit further along the coast, actually, from Cape Town. But yeah, the pitch does look almost sort of dead straw coloured.
In comes Philander. 3 slips and a gully, bowls, gentle delivery outside the line of off stump. And it's left alone by Crawley. England yet to score.
You can join us at Guerrilla Cricket on Twitter or at Crick Tracker, and many of you, I'm delighted to say, already have. We can wave to you there, and we'll be coming to some of you at the end of the over.
Yes, I've almost forgotten about you tweeters. Just checking that you're alive and you're awake, and you're going to join us and steer the conversation in whichever bizarre routes you want to take it down. Crawley settles down and waits. There's not a cloud in the sky as Philander is in. This one comes back into him, but he's got time. Maybe that's a sign of the slowness of the ball, pace of the ball as it comes off the pitch. He had time to whip that away into the onside behind square for a single. England underway. They are 1-0.
And this man will now face up to Werner Philander, who's coming in from the Park Drive end.
Vision batting. He made huge runs, the rumours spread by word of mouth. But this guy's really talented. Dominic Sibley. Dominic Sibley.
I was quite interested on LinkedIn. Some of you may belong to LinkedIn, the sort of, what would you call it, the professional website, as he prepares to face his first ball. And it swings, but it swings very early and it's ended up too wide and is left alone by Sibley. I was going to say that there's some interesting stuff by one of the coaches that I follow on there talking about Sibley's technique, and quite a lot of disagreement amongst coaches about his technique, which I'll try and dig out for you later, and if Sibley's still out there, we'll talk about it.
So we're joined by Marg and Messy Jez on Twitter, and both of them are quite keen to talk about Paul Sterling.
Oh yes,
which we can do very soon once we're fully underway at Port Elizabeth. We're also joined on Crick Tracker by Moo Kut, Aditya Sishocha Rai, Yash Rator, Shubham Indolia, and Tony McKinnon, most of whom say hello, except for Tony McKinnon, who says Given Curry SA.
Given Curry SA.
Which I'm not sure quite what that means, but
it's a bit early for a curry, I would say. But
please do join us on Twitter or at Crick Tracker on Facebook, and we'd be delighted to hear from you.
And you can also watch us on YouTube. The links to all of those are in our pinned tweet.
There you go. You can't ask for anything much more than that. Now we are going to have a new bowler, new to our eyes. Anyway, it is Dane Patterson. He's got a very interesting haircut. 3 slips in the gully. He's bowling to Crawley and he's in. And he's one of those actions that's a little bit off the wrong foot, but it's played well enough by Crawley. Down through gully. They'll come through for the single. And England moved to 2 without loss.
Did play one game during the World Cup, I think, as an injury replacement for Dale Steyn, but here he is, having just bowled his first ball in Test cricket.
Have you heard of Patterson? He's a bowler, South African. Favourite ferret Upton come in. He's got a really fine abdomen.
He's got a really fine abdomen. I'm going to have to look at his abdomen now. He's got a haircut where he's shaved up either side with a little fluffy bit on the top and a reasonably prominent beard. He looks very neat.
It's one of those beards, though, with a moustache and the beard don't quite join. It's slightly Abe Lincoln.
Yeah, I've got one of those when I try to grow a beard.
In fact, no moustache at all.
Patterson in, bowls, and left alone. He's one of those skiddy bowlers, probably a little bit quicker than you think. This is left alone outside the off stump.
He might be quicker than you think, but he's not as quick as Rabada. I mean, this is a bit strange, isn't it?
Well, I mean, Dane Patterson is a movement bowler rather than a pace bowler, so we're told. So Daniel was saying, and so people who know him say, and South Africa are obviously looking to try and see what movement there is with this new ball early doors.
Yeah, maybe it's just going to be 2 or 3 overs from him just to see if he can get anything from it. But again, Rabada moves the ball as well, so it does seem a slightly odd decision. Maybe it would have been Philander to miss out as opening bowler, but no. This is left alone outside the off stump by Sibley, and through the keeper it goes. There is no run.
I mean, he looks to me like a kind of Marcus Stoinis bowler. He looks like kind of 5th or 6th bowler in a one-dayer.
A lot more quick than that, I would say. Marcus Stoinis. Mind you, Marcus Stoinis, well, his batting is something else at the moment, isn't it? 147 in the Big Bash, the highest ever score.
The less said about his control of his verbals, the better.
In comes Patterson, turning top of his run, and Sibley comes across his wicket and then has a little dab at a ball outside the off stump that he probably didn't need to play at, and through it goes to De Kock.
I can give you some first-class numbers on Dane Patterson. This 101 first-class games, I think that's before today. 350 first-class wickets at an average of 24. Yeah,
absolutely. You see, it's pretty good at first-class level. We're finding that with a number of these guys that are coming into the South African team, all aged around 29, 30, but they've all got very good first-class records. He turns again, gentle run in, speeds up as he gets into his delivery stride, and then bowls a fullish straight delivery, which Sibley pushes up to Rabada, who's thinking, why have I been taken off, or not even given the chance to open the bowling. What's going on here?
To me, this is just absurd. England have got two very inexperienced openers. They've got an inexperienced side, and they're being played in by a medium pacer. It's just crazy.
He's quicker than Philander. He's bowling in the...
Philander's a world-class bowler.
Well,
but
no.
This guy's just a medium pacer.
Yeah, but he's faster than Rabada, and faster than Philander, I suppose. But he's, as you say, he's not rapid pace. He's skiddy, if anything. This is defended on the front foot by Sibley, and that is the end of his first over. It just cost a single. England are 2 without loss. I'll tell you about the GPL after some tweets.
Yeah, and Ravi Nair, pretty much on the point of the GPL, says, "Hi, Gary, Hendo, Knackle. England to score 279 all out." And that's me at my most optimistic.
Well, hang on, Ravi. Are you going to put your money where your mouth is? Get on the GPL, my man.
Message yes says, "Morning all, only with you for the first session today,
no.
so please wrap up the England innings by lunch."
Messi, what on earth could you have that's more important than sitting and listening to us all day?
And the TV umpire says, "Good morning."
Good morrow.
Anthony King says, "Joe batting at 4 is crazy. He's the most technically gifted batsman going. For England to get better, he needs to bat at 3.
What?
Denley is a stopgap." So, sorry.
Philander bowls first ball of a new over, and it's a gorgeous delivery, probing around about off stump, beats Crawley as he comes forward.
I'll just finish this batch of tweets with one of our favourite tweeters, Kiwi Callie, says, "Hi, Gorillas. After the horror of Australia versus New Zealand, I have decided to only watch matches involving teams I don't care about, so SA versus England is perfect. But it is a school night, so I shall only be here for an hour or so." It's always good to have you along, Kiwi Callie.
No such thing as a school night in my book. Philander again to Crawley. Tony Bishop has arrived. He pokes his head round the door and says hello. Philander bowls, defended just outside the line of off stump by Crawley, and there is no run. I was reading a column by Rob Key last night in the Evening Standard, London's evening paper, edited by that idiot George Osborne. But in that article he was saying that Crawley is one of the mentally toughest of men he's met at his age, which is 21.
Seeing he's made a technical adjustment. He's batting slightly more on middle and leg rather than middle today than he was in Cape Town, trying to not follow it outside off stump quite so much.
This is a left alone outside said off stump.
And Zach Crawley plays for which county?
He plays for the Kentish men.
And Rob Key spent his cricketing career where?
The men of Kent.
The men of Kent.
Well.
Well, yes, you could say that. You could say that he might have a sort of vested interest to a certain degree. The GPL is open. It's £54 in the pot at the moment. If you want to take part in the GPL, I will give you instructions after this delivery from Philander, who's wandering back rather slowly to the end of his run. 3 slips of gully, mid-wicket, mid-on, extra cover, mid-off, long leg. He's in, bowls to Crawley. He's actually taken a step down the wicket there to play that, and defends it into the onside towards that mid-wicket, and there is no run. The GPL, £54. If you want to take part, what you have to do is go to our website, gorillacricket.com, go to competition, and then estimate how many runs you think will be scored in the day. If you get it on the nose, you get all the money that's in the pot. Of course, you do have to pay us to make a guess. You pay us £1. And of course that puts more money into the pot. We share it with you, as it were. And if you get it on the nose, you get everything that's in the pot. If you get it on the nose with someone else, you share the money that's in the pot. In comes Philander. Bowls are nicely whipped away by Crawley, that one, but straight to Maharaj at mid-wicket. And there is no run. £54 there at the moment. The more of you that take part, the bigger the pot gets, obviously. And you have until lunch to guess what you think is going to be scored in the day. And some of you like to go early, some of you like to go later.
So we've seen 0 swing, 0 seam. We haven't seen a short ball. I mean, this was an absolute armchair ride here for England's inexperienced openers.
I think you're being very harsh on them, Gary.
Here is Philander again, bowls. It does look like a comfortable pace off the wicket, and Crawley seems happy to just turn that into the onside. There is no run.
Dwayne Pretorius did get some swing. It was slightly too wide to make too much of a difference, but there was some swing.
Do you mean Dane Patterson?
Dane Patterson, sorry. And the first ball of this over swung beautifully late away from Zach Crawley.
I don't know. I wasn't aware there was so much swing. I thought there was a little bit of nibble, perhaps. But yeah, it looks like a comfortable wicket to bat on. Although being so dry, I suspect that it could break up.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons why we're not seeing so much swing is that England are able to bat well out of their crease because they're facing bowling which is, by Test match standards, even by first class standards, pretty gentle. Yeah, okay.
Patterson starts another over of gentle, medium, fast. It's 135 Ks.
Don't believe that. For a second.
84 miles an hour. I think that's about right, I would say. 2 for no wicket, England, into the 4th over.
He's about James Anderson pace, maybe a little quicker.
But he's a different sort of bowler. He's much more skiddy. He's a little bit off the wrong foot. Or it appears to be slightly.
He's got a very sort of late, quick arm action.
I'm trying to think who he reminds me of.
I've gone with Stoinis.
He's quicker than Stoinis. Stoinis is 75, 76. And a lot more skiddy. We've got a short mid-wicket in now for Sibley, and Sibley comes across his crease, and that ball is in the perfect area for him. He just clips it on its way down to Philander at long leg and takes his first run. England move to 3 for no wicket.
Well, they do have the couple of men catching in front of the wicket at sort of short mid-wicket, quite square, and a shortish extra cover quite straight. So it is a different type of pitch, and I think that than what we've seen so far and then what we'll see at Joburg. I think that might also have played into the decision to open with Dane Patterson, also giving him a little bit of confidence early on Test debut. But I do think they're trying to see if there's any movement.
He's in and worked again, this time by Crawley. It was a little bit shorter, and Philander is into the action once more at long leg. Coming in off the fence. England move to 4 for no wicket. Crawley goes to 3.
Your tweets are coming in, and we'll be reading them at the end of the over.
Yeah, I think it's a good. I think it's a very good toss to win. That's what I will say. And it is unfortunate for Faf that he's now lost 6 in a row. I mean, Root went through a period like that, didn't he? Where he was losing tosses. Was it in Australia? Kept losing tosses.
I think he lost every toss in that series, didn't he?
Patterson in again. There is absolutely nothing there for him. It's wide of the off stump, and Sibley happy to leave that. The other thing I suppose you would look at is that Rabada's taken 12 wickets already in this series. I think he's the leading wicket taker, and so on the basis that you do what England least want you to do, you would think that Rabada would have been into the attack. Does seem strange.
Maybe they're just trying to make it angry.
Maybe it's that. He's only 5 wickets short of his 200 in Test cricket. That's an amazing performance at his age. Here is Patterson again, and Sibley just jabs this one out into the offside. There is no run. 4 for no wicket.
I know that Duplessis is under a bit of pressure for his captaincy. This just seems to be contrary to me. He's just doing it to annoy the people who are telling him to step aside. I mean, there's a man with 195 Test match wickets who bowls at 90 miles an hour who's standing at mid-off. It's crazy.
Yeah, and if you are going to get anything out of the pitch in terms of bounce, then surely now is the time when the ball is at its hardest. Oh, right, well, Sibley comes right across there, exposing his leg stump, but he glances this on its way. In fact, no, it's come off his pad, and it's 4 leg byes.
And Anna Forsyth joins us and says she's from snowy Vancouver, says her flatmate has just recognised Ben Stokes on the Wisdom magazine cover and thinks Crawley is handsome, even if she did mistake him for Jason Momoa. I'm very proud. Tim Everingham says, evening gorillas, sorry to bang on about Australian weather, but it's raining all across the southeastern corner and it's beautiful outside. Don't expect much BBL tonight. Dave Sarah says, forget the test, surely play should be abandoned to honour Ireland's win yesterday. Harumph! Can I get a harumph?
Harumph.
Philander starts a new over, and it's wide and short and crashed by Crawley. I do think that the man at extra cover took some of the sting out of that, but not enough. It's run away to the boundary for one of these.
It's me, Sanshi. It's me, Sanshi.
That was an awful ball.
It's about the worst ball Philander's bowled in about 5 years.
Dave Meldrum says, Palm in exile here, tuning into guerrilla cricket in my office in Cape Town, by the way. The drought here in the Western Cape has eased in the last year, but the Eastern Cape, where this game is worse. Water restrictions in place.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
Mog's with us talking about his jingle, which I'll come to after this ball.
In comes Philander. That's better. outside the line of off stump, brings Crawley forward, defending to mid-wicket.
Mog says, please note, at the time of excreting that Patterson jingle, I had not actually witnessed his abdomen.
Now you've seen it, Mog, what do you reckon? Do you think you were on the money with his abdomen then?
Roy Palm, I'll finish this set off, says, morning all, weather update from South Africa. It's hot.
It's hot. It's not a bad day in England today. It's quite a nice morning, although apparently it's going to get windier and rainier later. I saw the weather forecast this morning. It said turning windier and rainier, and yet it's been windy and rainy all week. How can this be? Philander in to Crawley, fuller, almost half volley length. He checks his drive, and it's fielded at mid-off.
And Crawley, like Denley was, is batting almost a foot outside of his crease. And probably not with the new ball, but again, I think we'll probably see Quinton de Kock standing up to the stumps for Werner Philander before too long.
Yeah, the other thing is that if he's doing that, then you ought to get Rabada on, because he'll soon push him back into his crease.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And on that point, on Crick Tracker, XRD Chauhan just says the word Rabada.
Well, it's strange, but I think maybe Patterson will only get the 3 overs. That may be 3 overs too many. This is defended into the offside, and there is no run.
Look, I see the logic of what they're trying to do. I understand the rationale. I'm not sure I would have done it myself. I think I would have definitely have gone with Philander and Rabada, 2 world-class operators. It's also a little bit like you'll swap out the 2 sort of accurate bowlers who move the ball for 2 out-and-out fast men, and it seems a little bit when Rabada and Nortje come on, and it seems a little bit, it's switching from one plan to another sort of.
Yeah, you got Nortje. Maybe you'll just take both these off and then go all guns blazing. Philander in to Crawley. Crawley defends, this time square. Gully moves to field it, but it's the man from extra cover who ultimately does. And there isn't a run. 12 for no wickets.
We have some people with us on YouTube.
Hello, YouTube.
Greg Best 90 says, woohoo, it's felt like an eternity since the last test. And Sudipta says, great to see you back. Sudipta from India.
Excellent. Well, it's great to be back. I kind of lost my purpose in those 10 days when there was no cricket, as I tend to do. If I don't have the focus, if I don't have the prism of cricket through which to see the world, I struggle a little bit. In comes Philander, shorter ball, cleverly bowled really, because he saw Crawley coming at him and hits it up at the splice as he was advancing, although played safely enough square on the offside. That is the end of the over. It's 12 for no wicket.
Mark says, if England are 30 for 3, or 3 for 30 odd after the first hour, I expect Gary Naylor to defense-strate himself. Well, the window is there, but I don't think we're going to be 30 for 3. Roy Palm says, I remember in the last test a commentator saying one way to counter Philander is to put him off his length by batting down the wicket, which is what Crawley is doing. Yes, absolutely.
Well, you say that, but I mean, when Joe Root tried to do it, he just ended up nibbling to the wicket-keeper, didn't he?
Well, as we pointed out, the difference is he wasn't batting outside of his crease, he was walking down the track after the ball had been bowled.
I think he was doing a bit of both. He started slightly outside his crease and then was advancing to it, yeah,
well,
I agree.
they're playing Philander a bit like he's bowling off breaks, to be honest. Felix Stock says, hi guys, good to be with you, looking forward to a great test match.
So are we, and it's Patterson to continue, and he bowls to Sibley. This one comes off a thick outside edge into the gully on the bounce, and there is no run.
I mean, there's been no cricket we're covering, but as has been pointed out, the West Indies, Ireland have been in the West Indies, and Paul Stirling was absolutely magnificent. Yesterday, Ireland broke the record for the biggest ever T20 international power play. He's gone 95 in the first 6 overs, and then
really?
Ireland held their nerve at with the onslaught from Nicholas Pooran and Shafane Rutherford and others for the West Indies, and won the game.
Patterson in shorter and forced off the back foot. Played well by Sibley. Got right on the top of the bounce. He's going to get a couple there. It's not going to go all the way to the boundary. So England will advance to 14 for no wicket. Now, I was saying to Gary on the way over that I'm a huge fan of Paul Stirling. Always have been, always will be. But I've never seen him get more than 20. Every time I watch him, he plays a blistering number of cover drives or smacks it over mid-wicket, and then he gets out. So I didn't watch that last night. I thought, oh, it's only a T20, I need sleep. But no, he did brilliantly. A man comes in at backward square leg now, and this is full outside the off stump and left alone comfortably by Sibley. at 140. So he's cranking up, Gary. He's up. I think that's at 87 miles an hour.
I just
think
do
that's
not
a little
believe
bit
it.
quicker than Marcus Stoinis.
I do not believe that 87. I mean, I know we sometimes look at these guns and wonder why, but 87 miles an hour, come on.
Well, also, it always appears quicker when you bowl a fuller delivery because it doesn't have the bounce to slow it down. So that was quite a full one. So I can believe that. I think he's one of these deceptively slightly quicker than you think bowlers. In comes Patterson, bowls on the leg stump of Sibley. He turns it to mid-wicket and there is no run.
He was quite a bit quicker, and he's one of those guys who I think used to be a bit of a tearaway and lacked a bit of accuracy, but has just gone for a little bit more control as he's got a bit older. He is 30, as you were saying earlier, a kind of similar age bracket to Peter Malan and Rossi van der Dussen, who've come into the Test team, all of whom have made their Test debuts in this series.
Of course, Anrik Njortje waiting in the wings to come in as well.
Now, he is quick.
Well, he is quick, and he's taken, I think, 10 wickets in this series already. Fuller ball, just outside off stump, defended straight back to him by Sibley. And already Patterson's body language wasn't actually brilliant there. He sort of slumped the shoulders a little bit as if to say, oh, there's absolutely nothing out here for me, is there? Anyway, Crawley remains on 7, Sibley on 3, England 14 for no wickets.
On the gun, I always recall what my father said when these speed guns came in. He said, don't look at the speed gun, look at the batsman to see if a bowler's fast enough. And here they're just coming straight onto the front foot to this guy, playing him like a medium pacer, and that's working.
So, final ball of Patterson's third, which I would think will be his last. If he doesn't get a wicket here, he's into Sibley, and Sibley leaves this one comfortably outside the off stump. I think the experiment needs to be cut short, and Rabada needs to be brought into the attack as soon as possible. 14 for no wicket.
John Batham says, I note we've reached a stage where Sky Cricket put the England cricket squad list up and don't have the grace to list wicketkeepers separately. Massively disrespectful to an increasingly marginalised art.
It's dying. Wicket-keeping is dying, I tell you.
And get some grats, Susan. New name to me. He
Not
said,
to me.
Every time I hear Patterson is on to bowl, I think of the considerably faster Patrick.
Ooh.
Doubt our openers would be down the crease to him if he was bowling today. Scariest bowler I ever saw. That's, of course, Patrick Patterson of the West Indies and of Lancashire for a while, who had an amazingly high front leg. Sylvester Clarke's the scariest bowler I ever saw,
Yeah,
but
I'd agree with
Patterson's
that.
pretty close.
Talking of people being close, Quinton de Kock has come up to the stumps for Philander, bowling to Crawley. It's a full ball and he drives it pleasantly enough, but Rabada is round at mid-on, still wondering when he's going to get a bowl, and there is no run.
Yeah, I think Werner Philander is far too experienced and too cognizant of what he does to have his ego bothered by de Kock coming up to the stumps.
Yeah, I mean, he's bowling at 77 miles an hour. The problem for Philander here is there's absolutely no wobble, and when Philander is reduced to no wobble, then, well, the world is wobbling on its axis, or something like that. 3 slips in the gully, they go down, it's full and taken by de Kock as it's left by Crawley outside the off stump.
Jimmy Anderson picked a good one to miss.
I think you're probably right there. Yes, he'll be happily back in Burnley, presumably, by now.
And
Can anyone be happy in Burnley?
on Crick Tracker, Hattie Atkinson says, morning, me old muckers can only check in quickly throughout the day. Has got to work. Keep up the good work.
Well, we'll do our best. We'll see what we can do with the day. We're looking at the Graham Pollock Pavilion. It's a sort of corrugated iron structure. Well, the roof is anyway, of green. In comes Philander. That's a better ball, which comes a little bit off the outside edge as Crawley comes forward to it, but comfortably enough into the offside.
On YouTube, Dean Sinister asks, who won the toss, and was it the right choice in your opinion? Great coverage, thanks.
Yeah, it's absolutely the right choice. England won the toss. Joe Root immediately said, I will bat, and so will the rest of my team.
Faf du Plessis said that it was a bit of a toss-up for him, whether he was
Really?
quite literally saying whether they're going to bowl or bat. I think there is a slight air of conservatism and fear, I think, to Faf du Plessis.
Fear, total fear. This is left alone. Very well judged by Crawley. It wasn't too far outside the off stump. Taken again by Pollock, de Kock. 76 miles an hour. This from Philander.
Plenty of cricketing Pollocks, none of them wicket keepers. Not fear is probably too strong a word, but caution, I think, from Faf du Plessis. This is a team that lost pretty consistently through 2019 in all forms of cricket, and is, I think, it's very easy to revert to caution and to lack of risk when you're in that situation.
Yeah, we've seen it before. We sometimes think that England might have done that, of fielded when they should have batted. He's in again, bowls to Crawley. Crawley's right forward, showing good technique to defend that with a high left elbow. Back to the bowler.
The Adelaide Barmies are with us.
Hey!
Is it me, or does Sibley look like a young Sir Andrew with a beard?
Sir Andrew Strauss.
I suppose.
I think he's got a bit more hair at this stage. Although I imagine that Straussy did it at the age of 21. But he's... no, he's not 21, he's 24, isn't he? Yeah, Sibley. Crawley's 21.
Anna Forsyth gets it right. Says not putting Rabada on to open the bowling is an insult to him, but more to us listeners who want to hear the jingle. I think you'll be hearing it very soon.
There is that. 3 slips in the gully again for Philander, into Crawley, onto the back foot. Plays that as if it jumped on him a little bit, but I can't believe that it did. Anyway, it's just nudged into the onside, and that is the end of the over. England are 14 without loss.
We have Crick Tracker person whose name is it written in, I take it, maybe Hindi, it could be Gujarati or something, who says world's top batsman MS Dhoni. What
year are you talking about?
Well, it was within the last 5 minutes.
No. I'm certainly see that he could be your favourite batsman, and you enjoy watching him, yeah.
He's got a lot of fans. Garth661 on YouTube says, "Morning, gents. Everyone's happy in Burnley. They're always drunk."
I suppose you have to be in Burnley.
What the hell has Sean Dyche been drinking?
I've never been to Burnley, so I'm sort of...
telling you now, and I'm telling you firmly. Don't ever want to go to Burnley.
Well, we're not going to get to Kagiso Rabada. We're going to continue with Dane Patterson, and this is a pointless delivery, really, way outside the off stump, which Sibley is not in the least bit interested in. I mean, he's been economical, but then that's because England are watchful at this stage. He's just gone for the 5 runs as he's started his 4th over. It's a watchful start, but there are no real demons in this pitch, it would appear at this stage, although we're now seeing Rabada beginning to warm up, so if there are demons, he will be the man to unearth them. In comes Patterson. That's a better ball. Comes into him ever so slightly, but cleverly played by Sibley. Drops it into the offside and hurries through for a single, well backed up by Crawley. And England move to 15 for no wickets.
With the 2 runs that Dom Sibley scored in Patterson's last over, he pushed his test average over 40. The first English opener to average 40 since Alistair Cook, apart from Jack Leach.
That's right, because that 100 took him, and it was a not out as well, wasn't it? Took him to 39, I think. When I was updating my stats, I was quite surprised it had gone that high.
It's only his 4th Test match, Endo.
I know, but he had a pretty poor.
But the 100 is in his 4th.
An unbeaten 100 will help you. Patterson again, full and driven this time by Crawley, who I like the look of. I really do. I know he hasn't got the record behind him yet, but he is very young. This fielded at mid-on, and there is no run.
What slightly worries me about Crawley, and I think he'll be found out when the proper bowlers come on, Rabada, Nokia, although Philander obviously is a proper bowler, but he's looked very ordinary this morning, is he does plant that front foot, and I think he'll be troubled by the short ball that rears at him, and most batsmen do. Most batsmen are, and the ball that moves away. It just looks a little bit statuesque.
In comes Patterson, who maybe just unearthing a little bit of swing there. It came back into Crawley, who dropped it into the offside, and they came through for another quick single. It's his good rotation of the strike by England.
In that sense, he reminds me a little bit of Hick. He looks like he might be something of a flat track bully, because if the ball isn't doing much, because he's so tall and because he's got such a lot going for him, I think he's going to be good, but I do worry a little bit he might be found out by the very best.
Well, a lot of players are found out by the very best, but I've been quite impressed, even though he hasn't put the numbers on the board yet. I quite like the look of him.
No, even in first-class cricket, his record is fairly modest.
Yeah,
really.
He's only averaging 30, but he is only 21. In comes Patterson, bowls. Oh, now that gets Sibley up on his toes, defending square on the offside. Just a little bit of extra bounce there. We've lost the picture, I'm afraid to say.
It's the third time this morning Sky have lost the pictures from the host broadcaster.
It must be the drought in the Eastern Cape that's doing it. That's what I reckon it is. A man who never suffers from drought is Tony Bishop. He's waiting to join us. He was knocking back the red wines yesterday lunchtime, I can tell you. Anyway, we're looking at this incredibly dry pitch.
South African Reds, we hope.
I don't think it was. I'm not sure. Short ball, first one in anger from Patterson, but Sibley gets underneath it very comfortably, and it's given us a wide, would you believe, by Mr. Oxenford. Wide, fifth extra of the morning to go with 4 leg byes. And that takes England's total on to 17 for no wicket. We will have a change at the end of this over. Now, I don't know. Everyone's mucked up my rotors because people haven't arrived on time and people have had to go back to Leeds for various reasons. Why anyone would have to go back to Leeds, I don't know. So I'm not sure who's actually taking over ball by
Gary.
ball. I think it's Gary. It's Gary. You're going to get more of Gary, and I expect he's going to moan about Rabada to you. That's my guess. Outside the off stump, left alone. That is the end of the over. It is 17 for no wicket.
The next voice we'll hear on ball by ball will be Gary Naylor, but first Rihanna.
Yep, you owe us all right. You think this alternative cricket commentary stuff comes cheap? Well, we need some dollar bills to help pay our bills, so please go to patreon.com/GorillaCricket and sign up to make a regular monthly donation. You know there is literally nothing like Gorilla Cricket's coverage, so don't be tight. Dip into your virtual pocket and throw some cash our way. See, Rihanna knows. Patreon.com/GorillaCricket.
Well, I'm not going to moan about Rabada, but I am going to talk about Rabada because the game's going to start properly in a moment. But I'm joined on my right by
Jason Isiox. Good morning, everybody.
And on my left by a smiling Watford fan, I hope.
Well, a bit early to be smiling too much, but it's nice not to be in the bottom three, Gary.
Yes.
Even temporarily.
Playing
Hello.
football too. As Rabada, a man with 195 test match wickets and an average of 22.7, but not good enough to open the bowling today. We'll see now what he can do. I suspect one of the things he'll do is drop short because these batsmen have just rocked onto the front foot at will, but they won't be able to do that to Rabada. It's Zach Crawley who faces up, and this is a hideous wide, and that will surely be called wide. Yes, it is. So, gentlemen, have you any thoughts on why Rabada didn't open the bowling with Big Vern?
Do they both? I'm not sure about. I haven't seen that much of Patterson. Is he out and out quick, or did he move the ball around?
Well, he looked medium
Quick
pace.
in the green room.
Rabada is in, and it's outside off stump, left alone, through to De Kock, who takes the first ball with his fingers pointing up. Didn't need to do that for the first 8 overs.
I think the only thing you can say about it is they've gone with sort of swing type bowlers at both ends very early on. So if there's any chance of any swing, then they were going to continue. If there wasn't, then they'd whip him out of the attack quickly and get Rabada on, which is what's happened.
I think it might have been perhaps just the element of surprise. England know what they're going to get pretty much with Rabada, and they won't know so much about Patterson.
Rabada's in. It's another hideous wide outside off stump. Is he trying a bit too hard to justify his introduction to the attack? It's not been called wide. That's extraordinary. It was miles outside off stump.
Anna Forsyth did say, stop me if you read this one already, not putting Rabada on to open the bowling is an insult to him, but more to us listeners who want to hear his jingle.
His jingle is ready.
We think we are about to play it if we haven't played it already.
He's a high roller, rockin' roller, scariest, deadliest, killingest bowler. Can sink your oats right to spell it Armada. No one faster, no one harder. What's his name?
Well, that was quite something from Rabada because we had the first short ball and immediately Crawley was discombobulated because he's so on the front foot and he tried to kind of pull it off the front foot, got something of a leading edge, and it fell just over the head of Nokia, who was running back from mid-on. So already the game is different there. A bit lucky to get away with that, but it sort of underlines my point that Crawley looks a little heavy-footed coming onto that front foot. As soon as Rabada's extra pace got the ball higher, he was less able to deal with it, and it wasn't a chance, but had Nohier been placed perhaps 2 yards further back at mid-on, then he might have got hands to it. 3 slips and a gully for Dominic Sibley, who's leaving this one alone. It goes through to the keeper.
It's a bit of shape there. Just a little bit of away movement in the air. So that makes it sort of belies the idea of putting Patterson on first, potentially.
Well, you don't get 195 Test match wickets at 22.7 without being able to do something with the ball.
Within 4 years of
it's just absolutely crazy decision from Faf. But Rabada is in, and this is on middle stump, and Sibley, as he does so well, gets in behind that one, plays it beneath the eyes. He does have a tendency to get a little across his stumps, Steve Smith style, but and the back pickup isn't great from Sibley, but he's found a method that works for him. And what's good about it, and this is an old story with batsmen, is at the moment that the ball hits the bat, he's balanced, it's under the eyes, everything's right. As this ball, again, a bit shorter, and he goes onto the back foot, the Sibley, onto his toes and defends. It's the end of the over. England on 19 without loss. And your tweets.
Hattie Atkinson is with us on Crick Tracker. Morning, mail muckers. Can only check in quickly throughout the day. Has got to work. Keep up the good work. Harish Teroru Pardesi is with us, as is Mauricio Luongo and XRD Chauhan. So hello to all of you. Now, Anna sent us that tweet which queued up a jingle. Jason, you might have to be ready. Fastest finger first. Mike Taylor's also queuing up a jingle, but it's for someone who's not playing.
Oh dear.
But I'll read it to you anyway and see what you can do. Paul Sterling, says Mike Taylor. Paul Sterling is incredibly agile for a fatty. His gut never seems to get in the way of his bat. At the second ODI in Barbados last week, incredible nail biter, we were calling him the Portly Panther.
Yeah, and the man who won a raffle to get a Test match game is continuing to bowl here. That was wide of the off stump. Dame Patterson now in his 5th over. Extraordinary.
Who was that person?
Paul Sterling.
That's the fella. Well done.
Who was involved in the highest ever power play in a T20?
Paul Sterling.
Amazing. As Patterson's in again, and this is outside off stump, and it just goes through to De Kock, who takes it at shin high. Dear me, Zach Crawley must be thinking this Test match cricket's an easy game.
Spangly Sai says, "Well, ho, chaps. Lovely to hear you on my way to work." You may be in work now. That was 9 minutes ago. I don't know how long it takes you, Spangly Sai. Hope you had a better journey here than I did getting to our studio. Hayes says, "I was complaining the £12.50 for my ticket for the 4th Test between South Africa and England was too expensive. It's also the best seat at the stadium. What would you be happy to pay?" There was 200 rands by the way, which is £12.50.
Short, and it's hacked by Crawley, who looks a completely different player on the back foot than he does on the front foot. Again, he was too early on it, and it almost looped to Big Vern, who's at mid-on, but it dropped in front of him. They've got to go short to Crawley, surely, because, again, he's sort of off the front foot, attempting to pull it through the shot too early.
It's the second time he's played that shot. One he did get hold of just enough to evade the man at mid-on, and that time it just fell short of the man at mid-on, but it was uppish in both cases.
He's bracketed him now. He's got one over and one under.
Yeah, this ball is defended properly by Crawley, who looks very much a front foot player, very much plant the front foot, and then the back comes down. Unlike Hendo, I'm unconvinced by Crawley. He's only 21, he may make it, but he looks like a man with a first-class average of 30 odd rather than a man with a first-class average of 40 odd, which is what Sibley is.
Yeah, he doesn't engender the same level of confidence as, let's say, perhaps Ollie Pope might have done.
Yeah, I agree. Of course, his role is opening bat, and England have gone with him. It'll be interesting to see how he plays in Sri Lanka, because that's a heavy-footed style, which on Sri Lankan wickets may not be what's looked for against the spin. He's defending this. goes into the offside, into the covers, and there is no run.
Anna Forsyth might just have to explain this one to me, Anna. Come heavy bombs and fall on Burnley.
Yeah.
Oh, that's...
Is that a conversation that I
No,
missed?
that's a poetry quote.
Yeah.
Oh!
It's Betjeman's point of Slough, but we were talking about
Slough.
what's the point of Burnley, I think got a mention, and John Cooper Clark's, I'm telling you now, I'm telling you firmly, I don't ever want to go to Burnley. I don't know how we got to... it was Jimmy Anderson who's got his feet up in Burnley now.
Yeah, it had to be the Jimmy Anderson
The
connection,
Burnley
I would
Express.
have thought.
Here is Dane Patterson to finish his over. It's short, but even Crawley can time that one. He's struggled with it so far, and he gets it out to long, rather mid-wicket, where Peter Milan almost carries the ball over the sponge, but doesn't. Returns it to the bowler. It's the end of the over. 10 overs gone. England 21 without loss. Crawley has 11.
Adelaide Barmies, good to see the keeper up in the 7th over. Kiwi Callie says, picture's gone here in New Zealand too, obviously the same feed. So for once it's not Bear sitting on the remote control, so that's positive. TV Umpire says, BCCI announced annual player contracts for team in India and no central contract for MS Dhoni. Is this it? ? And that would explain a lot of the conversation on Crick Tracker at the moment, which is about the merits of the great MS.
Well, he needs the money, he needs that central contract. How's he going to make ends meet?
Now you're just trolling.
Here's Rabada. He's in, and that goes through to the keeper. Now that was showing 144, 90 miles an hour. I don't think Rabada's slipping himself here. So in my eyes, that speed gun is overreading by 3 or 4 miles an hour. But I may be wrong. We have a man, a backward square leg in a catching position, and we also have a man at short mid-wicket to go with 3 slips and a gully, and Rabada is in, and this is through to the keeper again. De Kock takes that shin high. This pitch looks pretty dead already. I suspect as we go into days 2 and 3 it will be absolutely dead, and then it might do a little bit on 4 and 5 as the dryness gets to it, and there'll be a bit of variable bounce and perhaps a bit of spin for Maharaj and Dom Bess, and perhaps also Joe Denley and Joe Root, as Rabada's at the top of his run-up. Sibley has just 4 from 26, but that's not his game, scoring quick runs, and he withdraws the bat, but as sometimes it happens, the ball just takes the bottom edge and goes through along the ground to Quinton de Kock, and there is no run.
It may be, yes, don't forget that the speeds are measured from the hand, and by the time it gets to the batsman it's generally considerably slower anyway, but particularly if it's a very, very slow pitch, it might slow down even more. Yeah,
but I think Rabada is...
I don't think he's putting in 100%. I think he's at his 100% rhythm either.
I think, yeah, he's not absolutely in rhythm, and a little bit of in shape with that one, and that's where Sibley does have a slight technical issue in that he didn't move his front foot to the ball there. And it took an inside edge. There was a gap between bat and pad, and the ball could easily have gone through it, or indeed he could have inside edged it onto the pads. He's just got to look out for that, Sibley, because he does need to get that front foot out to the ball that's outside off stump on a 4th or 5th stump line.
Kiwi Callie actually said Rabada's radar badly off. Of course, he'll probably get a wicket by the time Guerrilla Cricket read this tweet. Well, he hasn't.
Yeah, he doesn't look as in perfect rhythm, but it also looks like Rabada, if there is a breakthrough here, then I think he might go quick at Denley. Let's see. As he's in again, he's running quickly to the crease, and that did seem to be a bit quicker, and de Kock took that slightly stepping back, and indeed the speed gun's showing that 148 miles an hour, which is 92 miles an hour. I mean, it did look quick, but it didn't look 92 miles an hour, surely.
No, the foreshortening is quite misleading. You can look quite slow if de Kock is standing quite a long way back.
Yeah. You just get a feel, though, don't you? I mean, that we're getting lots of sort of red for super fast in the box that's telling us the speed, and this one is wide of off stump. It goes through to the cock, it's the end of the over. England are 22 without loss, largely without incident. Just a couple of miscues by Zach Crawley that did not go to hand. But there's been no shouts for LBW. There's been no dropped catches. England couldn't ask for a more gentle start to a test match. Joe Root having won the toss and elected to bat. And you're tweeting us and you're following us on Crick Tracker. And Tony Bishop has your thoughts.
I do. The Duke of Umbridge, live from the gates of hell, is seeing some innuendos where I'm not sure they were there. But he says the Duchess and I suspect that tweet, which we were talking about Quentin de Kock coming up to the stumps, was the result of a secret wager. How much has the writer won for placing the word come immediately after the words de Kock's, and up to the stumps is a euphemism for what precisely?
Ooh, well.
Wait till we get Wood and de Kock together, and the Duke of Umbridge will be in euphemism heaven. Change of bowling though.
Yep, it's this man.
If your number one project is to have yourself a bride, I think I've got to your number one guy. He was bought by a franchise when he was buying meat. It's Ulrich Nortje.
Now, I like the look of this bloke. He's full on all the time. He's authentic quick. He doesn't do too much with the ball except try to hurt you with it, which is what a fast bowler should do. He's got 3 slips, a gully. He's got a man just round the corner at backward square. He's got a mid-wicket, mid-on and a mid-off. And forward is Dom Sibley, and there is no run.
Is he the Neil Wagner of Australia? Is
I was
that
going
what
to say,
you're-
is he
Well,
slightly
of
faster
South-
and nastier than Neil Wagner?
Yeah,
South
he-
Africa,
he
rather.
doesn't bowl quite as short, quite as often as Neil Wagner. Although, I think if he does go to a short attack, I think he'd be a bit of a frightening prospect. But he's just a fast bowler. He just gets it to the other end as swiftly as possible without too many frills, and looks to knock the batsman onto the back foot and then get them coming onto the front foot. This is beautiful shot by Sibley, who goes back to this one and plays one of my favourite shots, which is the kind of cut but with a vertical bat, and it goes all the way to the point boundary for one of these.
There's not one boy for me, I must have 2 or 3, I need 4.
Not a bad answer to all those people that say he doesn't play so much on the offside, was it?
Yeah,
Gorgeous shot.
it was wide of off stump and it was short, and he looked a bit foolish had that gone to slip, but the ball was there for the shot, and I think he played it very well right off the middle. I think Nortje will bounce him this ball. Let's see, we haven't seen the middle of the pitch explored, and I think he's getting some advice there from I think Big Vern at mid-on, and if he's got any sense he's saying give him a bouncer. We'll see. Here is Ulrich Nortje. He's in. It's a little bit short, but it doesn't really get up, and Sibley plays it into the leg side where it's fielded at mid-wicket. So we haven't seen much in the way of bouncers. Middle of the pitch hasn't been explored, and there doesn't seem to be much bounce available, really.
No, and I think the bouncer might have been just premature. He's not quite warmed up enough yet.
Yeah, I think you're possibly right
So,
there,
and it's
Jason.
the obvious answer, so maybe this ball, now that he's had 3 balls to loosen his back up.
Well, I think we've seen a slip come out. Yes, there's just 2 slips now. So the offside field being strengthened by Faf du Plessis. I'd be a bit annoyed if I was a fast bowler and 3 balls into your spell, you lose a slip. But that's what's happened. And here is Nortje, and this is on middle stump, and Sibley comes across this stump Smith-like and is able just to knock it into the leg side. There is no run. Sibley has 9 now. Crawley has 11. England have 26 without loss. I think we should have 27 because that was an obvious wide from Rabada in his first over. One was called and one wasn't.
I'm thinking that one of the things with Rabada is he's trying to work the off stump of Crawley, because don't forget he was out caught behind twice in Cape Town, wasn't he? And I think they've got a feeling that that's a weakness that is there to exploit.
As Nortje is in, and Sibley goes back, plays it beneath the eyes. It goes into the leg side where Peter Malan, who impressed me enormously in Cape Town, does the fielding. I just think with Crawley you've got to knock him back onto the back foot first, just to get him that slight hesitancy in coming forward onto the front foot. and then you're more likely to have him nick off. But at the moment, he's so comfortable coming onto that front foot, which he plants, and he's a big man.
Actually, I think that might be the reverse. You might need to bring him forward onto the front foot and then knock him back with a surprise one.
Yeah, maybe that's it. As Sibley goes back and defends this ball back from whence it came. England 26 without loss.
The Duke of Umbridge again. My dear Guerrilla Cricket, the Duchess and I have heard that Gwyneth Paltrow has launched a new candle, and we were wondering about the scent. We've been informed it's a blend of linseed oil and leather. Could any of your correspondents enlighten us? Well, it sounds magnificent. I'd be intrigued to know how much the lovely Gwyneth knows about cricket, but who knows?
That candle's been causing some commotion on social media.
Has it?
It's strapline as it smells of something else, but I think we might just want to
maybe leave that there then. Mog is replying to originally a tweet of ours about of his with England a 30 for 3. I expect Gary to defenestrate himself. Ravi Nair had replied, Gorilla House is not that high. He'll probably just bounce gracefully and use it as a start of his run to the local spa. But
yes.
What's it? To Mog, which replied, it's the gesture that counts.
Well, a window of opportunity being wasted here by South Africa, but Rabada again is a little bit shorter, and that got up and took Crawley on the thigh pad as he attempted to leg glance it. Let's say I definitely want to be short to Crawley.
And hi Mog, by the way. I'm counting the days now till I can buy you that beer. I'm actually counting the days till I can go and see my son in Australia, but buying you a beer will also be a huge pleasure.
When are you due out in Australia?
I'm going out on the 6th via Sydney and then to Melbourne. As
Rabada is through to Quinton de Kock, who takes the ball fingers up. Excellent. Well, safe travelling, Tony.
Thank you. Messi Jazz says, if only Samit Patel was as agile as Paul Sterling, some of his efforts in the BBL have been seriously embarrassing. In T20, it's hard to justify picking himself at all. They have at least got themselves a win now, haven't they, the Renegades? They were 9-0, as the Americans say, but I think they're now 10-1, so at least they've got off the mark.
Well, I don't think they're 9-0, they're 0-9.
0-9, sorry, and you say it back to front, don't you? But anyway, it's now 10-1, whichever way you want to put it.
Rabada, right arm over, wide of off stump, just left alone by Crawley. It's through to the keeper. It's been a low intensity and a kind of low skill start by South Africa here, and England are being given a bit of an easy ride. The two inexperienced openers were a very young side from England, not quite as young as it would have been had Archer been fit enough to take his place, because Mark Wood is a little older, of course. But
also, is Pope being dropped?
No, Pope is playing.
Well, yes, it is still a very young side though.
Yeah. And Rabada, still a young man himself, of course, is in, and Crawley is defending that, but the hands went to that ball rather than the feet, and just dribbles into the offside. There is no run. This looks an absolute belter for batting on here. It's fill your boots time.
TV umpire is already compiling a nice 11 of chubby but agile players, of which he's got Sterling, Samit Patel, Mohamed Shahzad and Malinga. There are a few names that come to mind, he says.
Mike Gatting was definitely chubby, but he was agile. He was a very fine fielder.
Colin Milburn.
Rabada is in, and this takes a half outside edge, and a sprawling man at Gully does the fielding.
Dwayne Leverock, did Dwayne Leverock play tests for the West Indies, or did he
No, he only ever played for Bermuda.
Of course he did, because he only played for Bermuda, yeah.
Later on, when he came back, I think it was Canada.
So he won't have played a test match.
And there is a gentleman of considerable bulk who's
Rakeem Cornwall.
There is the man.
In Cornwall, there you go. Although I don't think he necessarily fits the agile. Remember, TV umpire's criteria was chubby but agile.
Well, I'm thinking.
But he doesn't actually specify test matches, so Dwayne Leverock definitely could make that team.
Rabada's in, and this is defended beautifully back down the pitch by Zach Crawley. It's the end of the over. England are 26 without loss. Rabada's figures 3 overs, none for 3.
StrangeCarrots.com says, morning all, just got to the office, check my agenda. Nothing apart from listening to you guys, which is nice. Mike Mihal Wood, Guten Morgen from an unseasonably warm Amsterdam. With the pitch seemingly on life support, what is a decent effort for a first dig here? Oh, that's a good question.
Well, I think Knackle had some information about the average, but I think England should be looking for at least 400.
Highest,
I'd go with
let me
that.
see.
Somewhere in the region of... It's the amount of time it's going to take, though, that's probably the more important thing. Because I can't see them scoring it anywhere close to 3 and over.
Highest
at
team
the moment.
innings ever recorded here, 5:49 for 7.
Well,
Australia in 1950.
that would be nice, but this looks at least 400 par pitch as Nohir is in, and as if to make my point, that very gently goes through to De Kock, who sprawls down the leg side to take it. There's a man who knew about scoring 400 in first innings. Graham Pollock, Pavilion. I think 23 tests for Graham Pollock, widely recognised as one of the great batsmen of the 20th century. Of course, his Test match career was curtailed by isolation, but anybody who saw him had the greatest of respect for him. He's Sean Pollock's uncle. As Nohir is in, this is wide of off stump, and again Sibley plays that cut shot with a vertical bat, and it goes backward of point all the way to the sponge for one of these.
And if you kids can't listen, then you bound to see the way you get shot for crossing a boundary,
It looks the part, doesn't it?
That was a gorgeous shot. Absolutely
I
gorgeous
think
shot.
this pitch is allowing the time to play those kind of shots off the back foot, which you wouldn't normally play on perhaps a quicker pitch.
It's true, but I think you made the point, Jason, that it's not going to be easy to score quickly on this pitch. But as class batsmen do, he's timing the ball on a pitch that doesn't look easy to time the ball, and that's partly being shown by the fact that Zach Crawley at the other end can't time anything. He just lets this one go. Decent bit of bowling by Nohir, because that was just a little wider, just a little fuller, and had he attempted to repeat the stroke there, he might have been in a bit of trouble, but he withdrew the bat at the last minute, again showing how slow the pitch is, because it did allow Sibley to shape to play the shot and then pull out of it.
There are an awful lot of moving parts in that setup, aren't there?
Yeah, the setup isn't great, but when bat hits ball, more often than not, he's in a good position and he's balanced across the crease, which is something I always look for. Shortish ball from Nohir, and Sibley sways out of the way of it, but it was never anywhere near him. And Nohir already looks like a man with the weight of the world on his shoulders, doesn't he?
I think he's got the, oh my God, I run up, I bowl hard, I hit the deck, and this deck does nothing.
Jason, you're absolutely right.
And I've got 5 more days of this.
Yeah, and should they throw in a few Yorkers, try and take the pitch out of it? We haven't seen.
If they're going to bowl Yorkers, then Rabada's your man.
Yeah, I mean we haven't seen any Yorkers. We've seen precious few bounces. He goes wide on the crease here, Nohir, but again Sibley is perfectly in behind it, playing the ball right below the eyes with a high elbow. It's good technique from England's new opener. And Marg, who said they'd be 30 for 3. England are, what's the score, Jason?
30 for none currently.
Yes. So
you just put the mockers on that, though.
Well, the window at the moment is safe from my passage there through, if that's a word. So this is the last ball of the 14th over. Dom Sibley on 13, Zach Crawley on 11, and he defends this into the leg side. It's the end of that 14th over. England 30 without loss.
Arthur Patricia says, morning all. At the risk of pulling out an unwashed point from the bottom of last match's kit bag, we don't see Crawley as an opener long term, do we? Future 3 or 4 with Pope, presumably. Possibly, yes. Don't forget, he's rather been thrust into that position due to Rory Burns' footballing activities. Let's get Gary started on that one, but but that is why he's become yet another makeshift opener. As remember Joe Denley did with some distinction.
He does open for Kent, though. It is his position, but yes, I think he's further advanced in his development than would otherwise be the case. We're going to have a change. It is drinks at the moment, so I'm going to vacate, and as we do so, I think Jason will regale you with a jingle.
The best things in life are free. Just like Gorilla Commentary, we need money to Patreon. That's what I want. .com/Gorilla Cricket. We need money prefer guerrilla commentary. I want money. That's what I want.
Morning, peeps. It's good to be in, and England have made us a date, but I'm very pleased with this start.
It's not many alarms so far. A couple of missed-time pull shots from Zach Crawley, but I think the pitch is taking its time to wake up, and there hasn't been a huge amount that South Africa have been able to get out of it with the four bowlers they've
very
used.
good toss to win. Get 400 on the ball, put the pressure on there. I do you kind of get the impression that South Africa are a bit downhearted.
I don't know about downhearted. It's certainly been, as you said, a very good toss to win. Crawley's had a couple of alarms, perhaps.
Self-inflicted, though.
Self-inflicted, but they haven't bowled particularly well. I think Rabada will be a little bit disappointed. Sibley's played a couple of absolutely magnificent offside cut shots.
Considering we said he couldn't play on the offside.
Yeah. Which, as you rightly said, where we are looking at a beautiful view of St George's Park, right there on the
I want to go there.
Eastern Cape, looking quite magnificent. 31st test, I think, here.
Yeah, it doesn't get a huge amount of test cricket. It's not on every tour. England haven't played here since 2004.
Yeah, that's right.
Used to play here a lot in the very early days of South African test cricket. As we've been saying, this was the venue for the first ever test match that South Africa played, the first ever test outside England or Australia. Lots of statistically interesting games happened in the other days. George Lohmann once took 8 for 7, having taken 7 for in the first innings. In a test match here.
15 for not a lot.
Actually, if you look at the 30 tests South Africa played here, they lost the first one by 8 wickets in whenever that was 89, wasn't it? And then they lost the last one they played here in February 2019, also by 8 wickets to Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
So they've kind of bookended their career at St George's Park with 8-wicket defeats.
Overall record is not brilliant for South Africa. It's 113, lost 12, drawn 5. A lot of those obviously in the early days. Since readmission, they've won 9 tests, lost 5 and drawn 4. England have only lost once at Port Elizabeth, and that was back in the 1957.
Johnny Briggs took 4 for 39 in that game as well that you're referencing, Knuckle. But he went on to make even greater history in Cape Town when he took, I think, 15 or 16 wickets. Anyway, it's going to be Kagiso Rabada who's going to continue. That's left alone competently.
No ball,
and I think given as a no ball by is that umpire Rod Tucker.
It was indeed.
It was indeed a no ball. Sizable amount of free air between that. Grubby Howarth was the last one to be read, yes.
Sparsely populated crowd, isn't it? Well, people after the last exciting
might be
test.
early days, yeah, as Rabada wheels at the top of his run. He has 2 slips and a gully in place. Crawley again elevates the bat, watches the ball go harmlessly beneath it, probably on a line of about 5th stump. And he's not going to be drawn into playing that. 31 without loss, England. Steady start.
I liked what Crawley said at the end of the last test as well about his innings and the fact that it's a pretty poor shot, so a pretty poor ball, shouldn't have got out to it. Well, that was another
even
no
ball. He's just
that's a no
clipping.
ball.
Did he
That's
give it
a
a
no
ball?
ball.
No,
Yeah,
the line is the umpire's.
Maybe there's a tiny smidgen of the back heel.
No, I think so. I don't think he gave that one. As in comes Rabada. That one is in danger. Well, it would have been a 1 day wide. And again, they're trying to work that off stump of Crawley, but they just seem to be somewhat almost overreaching. So instead of getting it sort of on 3rd and 4th stump, they seem to be on 4th and 5th stump, and it's not really working at the moment.
I mean, most extremely with Rabada, very wide off stump, but I think all 4 of South Africa's bowlers have been a little bit too short and a little bit too wide on a pitch that probably you do need to pitch the ball up further than you do on some other South African pitches because it is that bit slower.
Indeed, as Rabada's in again. This one is worked away to mid-wicket, and they take a quick, competent and untroubled, but I wouldn't say unhurried, so they had to sort of get the pedal to the metal a bit, but it was a well-run single. 32 without loss, England. We are in the 15th over.
Speaking of Zach Crawley, Paul Howarth points out that Crawley's first-class average is significantly higher when opening. than it is in other positions. Usually bats 3 for Kent.
Well, that's probably good to know. I mean, he got what, 24, was it, in the second innings in Cape Town?
Looked really good for his 24.
Well, I think that's what got Hendo quite enthusiastic about watching him, because he looks the part.
Yeah. Well,
so,
we've had many that have looked the part.
As we shall wait and see as Rabada. This one's a better ball, and Sibley is forward, slightly on the crouch. To steer it into the offside. There is no run.
But the other interesting thing is, I mean, we've wondered where the hell where England are going for the last couple of years, and suddenly out of nowhere, due to illness and various other things, suddenly a bunch of young kids seem to have stepped up. I mean, this is one of the harder series, I'd say. You know, South Africa, one of the better bowling sides in the world, and if you can stick it to, you know, if you can get in South Africa and make a start to your career there, it's got to put you in good
in the
stead.
gully. There is a backward square leg. This one is rises up a little bit at Sibley, but he's up onto the back foot, drops it down, and they again take a quick single. Was it who was it who said that necessity is the mother of invention? Was it Einstein?
I think so. It's one of those quotes that you can attribute to Einstein or Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah, lots of other people. Well, to a certain extent, it has
Frank
been
Zappa,
for England.
I thought, you know.
Very good.
Very good. Oh, that's true. The mothers of invention. Yes. 33 without loss, but that has been rather the case, I think, for England.
And it seems to have turned out all
Crawley,
right.
Crawley's had to come in, hasn't he? As Rabada drops this short, Crawley just leans back, and it did follow him a wee bit, but Crawley was safely out the way. It was through to Quinton de Kock. No run.
90 mile an hour.
We've got plenty more tweets. More for the large but agile 11. Ravi Nair says Werner Philander, Gundappa Vishwanath, which is a little harsh. And
I think Philander's a tad harsh. I mean, he's certainly on the chunky side.
Despite what Josh Butler said to him at the end of the last test. And Sonath Jayasuriya. Messi Jez says it's fascinating to see how Londoners are prepared to pay outrageous amounts for ODIs and tests. The crowds must be extremely unrepresentative of the general population, which I suspect is true. Chris Waller says, morning lads. Durban Oak attaches that old photo of de Kock and Randin standing next to each other and says, with reference to the innuendos. Arthur Patricia says, in response to Grubby talking about Zach Crawley, that doesn't bode well. And Ravina says, just keep encouraging Burns to warm up with a football. Arthur Patricia says, keep Burns in a zorb when not playing.
Well, that's probably not a bad. He's going to be out for a couple of months, though, as Anarik Nokia is in. That's wide of the off stump, left alone by Sibley. No run.
Yeah, he's going to miss the Sri Lanka tour as ankle ligament damage. Not to be trifled with. It just seemed completely innocuous. He just sort of rolled his ankle while running quite slowly.
How many times I've rolled my ankle, God knows how many times in my life, and I've never done that much damage.
Sporting injuries?
Yeah, totally. You know, running around a field or doing something. You roll an ankle and you go, oh, that's painful for a few days, but a week later you're fine, you know. Or you strap it up with a bandage.
I can tell you about my worst ankle injury, but I will tell it after this ball. His second ball of the over, and it's worked nicely off his legs. It's guided quite magnificently through mid-wicket for 4 runs.
2 + 2 is our man.
Plays that shot so well, Dom Sibley, off the front foot with a straight bat through mid-wicket. It's a very difficult shot to play, but he makes it look like it's nothing at times.
It's playing slightly across his pads, but it's right in his wheelhouse in terms of where he likes to play the ball. And as only as we've been noting today, how well he's played off the back foot on the offside, but that was more conventional from him, and as is that. And he's just pushing this to mid-on. Yes, so my worst ankle injury, which did keep me out of any sport for over a month, and came up probably about 3 sizes, and I had to be bandaged and couldn't wear a shoe to school and to college. I fell off the doorstep while I was pissed, trying to get my key in the lock.
Well, you know.
And the house had one of those sort of more old-fashioned, sort of quite large doorsteps, which I just rolled backwards, rolling my ankle as I went. I also had quite a bruised backside and back. As in comes Norkia again, and quite elaborately down onto his haunches goes Sibley. It probably didn't get up as much as he thought it was going to. And if we were to see a replay of that, although he went right down, crouching down, I think that would have just only been 6 inches or so above his head as it went through to de Kock, and no run.
It could make the short ball quite tricky as we get later into this test match. Balls that don't quite get up, you can't duck out of the way of them. A little bit like we saw at Lords. I don't know if you've seen the footage that's been recently released of the Australian dressing room when Steve Smith got hit. Obviously massive concern there, but it does make things a little bit trickier if you can't trust the
In
bounce.
comes Norkia, and that one is that cut shot again with the vertical bat. Well, really kind of a drive away into the offside. It won't go all the way through covers. I would imagine that they will take 2. Yes, they did. But once again, it's a sign of Dominic Sibley, who I wouldn't say it was criticism, but it noticeably was leg side bias in his first couple of test innings. Now appears to be getting balls that he's very confident to drive away onto the offside.
Well, you know, I guess a ton does you the world of good, doesn't it? I mean, it makes you think you're in the right place.
I'd have to take your word for that, Bear. Never having...
I've never scored a ton either, but, you know.
In comes Norkia again. 2 slips and the gully go down. Forward comes Sibley, and Norkia just drops his right arm as the ball bobbles almost apologetically back to him, and there's no run. Remember, England won the toss here this morning, and I think a very happy looking chirpy Joe Root was delighted to have done that, and I don't think he had to think very hard about what he wanted to do. Some discussion here about the ball.
You can't complain because the seam's now.
While we're talking about the ball, Beijing Ducks and Yole and a few others all say Raheem Cornwall for the large but quite athletic 11. Dr. Jonathan Lowe says shouts for more chubby cricketers, if not already said. Rangana Herath, yes, one of the finest bowlers.
I think he was in the original. He was in the original.
He's not very
team that was
going
suggested.
field,
I think.
is he?
No, he's pretty good off his own bowling, like all spinners.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, one of the finest bowlers. of the
Chubby
modern-
athletic spinners good off their own bowling. Now I wonder if I could think of anybody I know.
That'd be me.
As in comes Rabada. That's down leg side, and it's flicked. That might be leg buys. It's certainly gone for 4. The question is, did Crawley lay a bat on that? Yes, he did, and it's 4 runs.
Way.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh no. Leg buys, I think, was signalled.
Yeah, it was definitely leg buys. Strayed. It would have. It was probably about 6 inches above leg stump, and Crawley was looking to steer it round the corner through long leg. Didn't lay a bat on it, but his thigh did the work, and it still adds 4 to the score for England. Chubby, that's generous. Hendo, of course, was a witness to. This one's short, slightly short, and Crawley just pushes it away to mid-wicket. Yeah, famously, this was our match, Dan Lucas Memorial match against the Guardian. The Bear wheeling away, always looking threatening. Plenty of variety, flight, guile. Dropped though a couple of absolute howlers.
Only one howler.
Oh, one howler off my son.
He was not happy.
Who wasn't happy, and then took an absolute worldie off his own bowling.
Absolutely.
You've never seen somebody move that fast. This one's outside of the off stump, and Crawley leans into it, doesn't really get hold of it, and it's just pushed straight to cover. There's no run.
Little hit to swing for Kagiso Rabada for the first time today. Durban Oak says, if you look at South African cricket, every team has to have a designated fat lad. Evil Scooters says, salutations, oh merry men of Sydenham. I've just returned from a gleeful birthday skip. Happy birthday.
Gleeful birthday skip. Well, I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Through some welcome puddles that were formed an hour or so ago. So England has a bona fide opening partnership for a while now. Well, they do, but it's Sibley and Burns probably long term.
Yeah, but then Crawley drops in at number 3 when Daniel gets too old.
Rabada is going to be right arm over in again, and Crawley again sort of crouches and leans back at the same time. And it's through to Quentin de Kock. Faf du Plessis is signalling he wants a man in short. I think he's asking for an extra helmet, if I understand his sign language, and that seemed to be, therefore you have to assume they want to bring in a man perhaps in at forward short.
Well, they had a man in at short mid-wicket quite square. I wonder if that man might just move in under the lid at short leg. It's been Peter Malan under the lid through most.
The classic role of the most junior player.
Indeed, yes.
Get yourself in where you're going to get hurt.
Well, it can't be a bowler, it can't be the captain, it can't be the keeper, and you sort of run through the rest of them.
True enough. Rabada, he's going to bowl the 5th ball of his 5th over, and he's in, and that one, and it's just flicked again by Crawley, just a fraction short of the diving de Kock. And I think he did get some bat on that. 90 miles an hour from Rabada. But yeah, he just got some bat on that. That would have been dangerously close to a leg side strangle. He's got away with it though.
I think it was glove, wasn't it? Got up and touched the gloves.
Yeah, I think that it probably was.
Took
43
the
without
pace off
loss.
it.
Oh, I thought it might have been thigh pad, which is why it dribbled rather through to de Kock. It was a decent take again by Quentin de Kock. He's continues to impress behind the stumps.
The bear has been called for presumably technical issues, as Rabada is in and Crawley is up onto his toes, pushes it back to the bowler. Again, no run.
Got plenty of tweets to get through. Linux Lear says, quoting Hendo, steer the conversation in whatever bizarre direction they like. He tasks me, and I shall have him. Quoting Khan from Star Trek. Anaforth Scythe says, does Vern Philander fit the chubby but agile team? Does his, quoting Joss Butler, fucking gut qualify him? That was all a little bit unsavoury and unnecessary, I think, at the end of the last test, but everyone seems to have moved on. Gits and Grat says, don't forget Inzamamul Huck for the Fatties team. His agility was never in doubt when he somersaulted over his hit wicket to that ball from Monty Panesar. Matt Searle with BBL News says, the Melbourne Renegades were 9 and are now 1-9. Americans don't say the number of games played, it's just won and lost. No idea how they handle the draw match. I suspect they don't even mention it. Well, I think most American sports don't have draws.
Yeah, that's not in the culture, is it?
Who's captaining that Renegades team? I saw that they'd lost
Dan
all
Christian,
9.
I think.
Is it Dan Christian?
Dan
Okay.
Christian, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. They've been poor.
Much more fun for the Melbourne Stars on the other side of town.
They're top, aren't they? Or
Glenn
Maxwell.
Yeah, Melbourne is sort of bookending that table. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. Big Bash.
But
Big Bash table.
League.
Yeah, Glenn Maxwell's been doing
division.
fine things.
We do have a change of bowling
Stoinis.
though, and the man who got under the skin of Joss Butler is going to be resuming the attack in replacing Nokia. He's in. Ooh, and that one holds its line, and a little jab at it by Sibley, who has a bit of a wry smile on his face, because I think he realised he probably jabbed the bat where a bat should not be jabbed there.
You first get the fear when he strides to the pitch. And that look right there tells you he's got the itch. The best you could hope for is to nick over slips off Big Vern. They call him the surgeon, the bowling machine. Surgically tear out your stumps real clean. He'll make you feel like you let down the team. That's Big Vern.
Well, Big Vern, that was a bit low and slow and wide of off stump, and no need for Sibley. It's a tactical switch, chaps. Hendo's like a concussion substitute for Bear momentarily. What happened, Bear? But he's gone again.
Business, you know.
Business. Oh, business is always good, providing it's positive business. 43 without loss, England. We're in the 18th over.
Change of ends for Vernon Philander.
Yes, indeed. So is he bowling from the
duck pond?
He is bowling from the duck pond.
I want to see the ducks, man.
Well, yeah, he's in again, and that is left alone outside of off stump. So has he got sort of a bag of stale bread to carry in with him?
Oh, they say you shouldn't feed.
Well, I know.
Bread.
I know.
I knew you'd
Bread
say
to
that.
ducks.
But we all do.
But as children, who did not go to the local duck pond and
We used to take, when the kids
lob
were little,
bread at them?
we used to take them down a duck pond in Peckham Rhyme. Bloody oodles a bit, everyone fed them bread.
I used to take my two to the Thames, which is just not that far from where my house was, and we used to feed the ducks, the geese,
the swans,
the ducks. Tuppence a bag, and that one is on the drive was Sibley, but driven straight to mid-off, so there is no run.
Yeah, none of South Africa's bowlers have been particularly good today. 3 overs, none for 14 for Anrich Nokia in his first spell, who does have his best first-class figures on this ground. It is pretty much his home ground. He was born in Uitenhage, or Uitenhage, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, but it's very much in the vicinity of Port Elizabeth. Took him 6 for 65 in first-class cricket for the Warriors here, and was part of a 9 wickets in the match.
Yes, indeed. As you say, he is bowling from that duck pond end, which has that sort of quite large 3-tiered sweep of a stand that rather dominates it. Philander's in again, and that one's wide, and de Kock has to take a couple of skips across and takes it quite low right in front of first slip. So the run rate not exactly express to about 2.4. But the important thing for England on the first morning of a Test match is with Sibley on 20, Crawley on 12. There is nothing yet in the wickets column, and
Which
43 in the run. 43 in the
Which
runs
is great
column.
as well. And nearly 18 overs gone as well. And we all know that the Kookaburra gets shit after about 20. So it's pretty good.
Yeah,
Indeed.
there's not been a lot of threat really from any of South Africa's bowlers, and I think that's just made it easier for Crawley and Sibley to bed in.
Philander's going to be in again, left confidently by Sibley. There is no run.
He's
Yeah,
got
we were
haircut
talking
as well.
about the crowd, weren't we? I mean, I guess Cape Town, you've got the Christmas period, Christmas holidays, Cape Town, which is dominated by English tourists, and probably now we're back into the working year, less tourists around. Suddenly the crowd doesn't look quite as fulsome, does it?
Yeah, I mean, the grass bank over there is filling up, but I'm sure that the weekend will see much bigger crowds. Guerrilla Cricket South Africa are fighting with us over the affections and attentions of Linux Lear.
Oh, right.
Not mutually exclusive friends. PJ Mead says, morning Gorillas, after having coffee in front of the TV cricket, I'm back in the office, amuse me. Anna Forsyth
Do
says,
our best.
Sky just showed an advert with the model David Gandy. Then Simon Cowell. Haven't seen people with appearances so opposite since Stephen Finn and James Taylor last played together, which I think is very harsh on James Taylor.
Simon Cowell's been advertising, I don't know, some sort of credit card or something. It's like he needs to borrow money. I mean, it's some ad where you just think, but you are the least likely person to ever need the product you're talking about, and it lacks any credibility at all.
All his products have taken a dive, aren't they? I mean, bloody X Factor is just a fucking disgrace now.
Well, obviously a fan there, as indeed I'm not either. As in comes Rabada, that's
that's a
fallen
lovely
on
shot.
leg stump, and that's beautifully whipped off his pads. But there is a man down there at deep mid wicket. I think it was Maharaj, and it was flung in by him. So it will restrict to them to just a single.
Yeah, I think another indication of how slow this pitch is that, whereas in other pitches he would have been sort of well backward a square on the leg side. I think he was almost, as you say, at mid wicket. So far was he in front of the square at deep square. I got quite a lot of tweets to get through, so I might just dip them in between balls. Arthur Patricia says the history of all South African cricket is recovering from that trauma of George Lohman. That's where their batting has been so geared to dour motherfuckers who can bat for 6 days straight.
A little bit more lift, steered through square leg by Sibley. They will just take a single.
Ridiculous. George Lohman has only played one test at St George's Park. Took 15 wickets in it and is well up the list of all-time wicket takers at the ground, despite having only played that one test. A ludicrous career, really. Jessica 23/16/14 Hockey Cricket Time says, making dinner while listening to Guerrilla Cricket. Could one have a better evening?
Well,
Good one indeed. Arthur Patricia says necessity is the mother of invention is inaccurately ascribed to Plato.
Oh, Plato. Okay, but inaccurately. All right, that's Rabada's in, and Crawley again. Not for the first time this morning. We've seen him drop down onto his haunches, and he's going to get a warning from. Is that Rob Tucker? It is.
One bouncer for the over.
That is one bouncer for the over, and he used that up there.
He's got one left. Arthur Patricia continues. The Jefferson quote is historically accurate. Not slander, but reputation pricking incoming. This slave is the mother of my illegitimate children.
Ooh.
How does that relate to the
Thomas Jefferson?
Oh, okay.
It relates to Thomas Jefferson.
Rather than necessity being the mother of invention, to whom that quote is wrongly attributed on occasions, right?
I think Thomas Jefferson is one of those people, if you don't know who a quote is by, it's either him or Mark Twain.
Yeah, often that is very true indeed. As Rabada is in and worked again past square leg, where Bruce Oxenford sort of leans across and raises a leg, flamingo-like, topples a bit to one side, and allows a comfortable single to be taken.
They had indeed put that man in Peter Milan at forward short leg. But only for Crawley, not for Dom Sibley.
Yeah, crops forward more, isn't it? I mean, Sibley plays very much under his eyes, whereas Crawley does tend to get out a little bit further.
And also is a little bit uncomfortable on the back foot, which is understandable for one so tall.
46 without loss. Rabada is rolling in. Ooh, and that was not a bad delivery. And arms go up in the slip cordon. As he really did have a little bit of a fish at one that swung
No,
away.
He didn't have a fish at that.
Well,
he
I
pulled his
think
bat inside it, man. He left that.
I'd
with
be very
ease.
interested
He
to
left
see the
that with
replay.
ease.
I think it was so wide it wouldn't have mattered either way.
I'd be keen to see the replay.
Mog says professional sportsmen get elite level injuries. Jessica says my favourite cricketing injury is either Donovan Nikirk, injured cutting an avocado, or Rachel Haynes, injured by her pet cat.
Yeah, the one he cut his finger with it, he was out for quite a while as
Cutting an
well, wasn't he? He was
well,
cutting an
avocado.
avocado, sliced the end of his finger off.
She
man.
in this case.
She.
As, in comes Rabada, and forward comes Sibley. They can be difficult customers, can avocados, because you have to sort of slice
Down the edge.
all the way around them
Yeah.
first, and then kind of peel back the skin, don't you? So there's an element of careful management with one hand as you slice with the other.
As South Africa's star women's all-rounder Donovan Nikirk found to her cost,
Which she did.
evidently. Messi Jez says, I can tell you from experience that foot injuries can last. I twisted my foot on the 23rd of December, had x-rays at A&E who told me to bugger off as nothing was broken. 4 weeks later, it still hurts like hell when I walk much. Doc says at least another 2 weeks. Ravina says in response, ouch. Also from my experience, these things take longer to heal the more years of life you had.
Well, that's true. The body doesn't regenerate, though, does it? That's
Then
quickly.
Nestle Boy says, I went over my ankle in the wet conditions at the Ryder Cup in Wales. Left anchor has never fully recovered. Still a bit mank.
Oh dear. You weren't playing though, were you? Merely spectating, as I recall. Unless I missed something.
No.
I don't know. Nestle Boy has actually
Are
won
we-
a Ryder Cup.
Are we seeing Nestle Boy? Are we seeing in this test?
Well, he
match?
was in Spain. He's been larging it in Spain.
I know he's
hasn't
been
he?
larging it in Spain, but I do know he is also coming back from Spain.
Who's this? I beg your pardon. Philander. Of course. Philander is continuing, and he's in, and Crawley is able to leave that comfortably enough outside the off stump. Now that is what I call a comfortable leave, whereas I don't think the previous one that we saw was a comfortable leave.
It was definitely a comfortable leave.
All right. Fair enough.
Martin Lawrence says, hello guys, who's your favourite player from South Africa you've ever seen? For me, it's AB de Villiers.
AB, yes. Barry Richards. If I go back to my childhood, I loved watching Barry Richards play. It was, of course, during a time when South Africa weren't playing Test matches, so we got to see a lot of, the likes of Mike Proctor as in comes Philander, steered beautifully by Crawley, wide of gully, and that will go all the way for 4 runs.
It's me, Sanshi. It's me, Sanshi.
I think Jack Callis is one of my favourite.
He was,
he was quite
his
boring.
record
but-
was extraordinary.
Well, exactly. I mean, he's one of those people you just got to stand up and go, Jesus, that man was good. And the thing is, as well, underrated as an all-rounder, and he got nearly 300 Test wickets, and we all talk about his batting and the amount of runs he got, but he was an extraordinary bowler as well,
Yeah.
especially early in his career. He was properly quick.
Had he not been such a good batsman, he would have been a first change or possibly even opening bowler for most of his career,
exactly,
and was one of the best slip fielders you've ever seen.
And in the pantheon of all-rounders, he doesn't often get included, but you can't.
The
not say
50's
he
up
wasn't.
for England with that 4, and that was nicely worked away to mid-wicket by Crawley. Patterson is the man who swiftly flung himself to his right to make sure that they stay on 50 and move no further. 50 without loss.
Yeah.
Halfway through the 20th over, so I think England would now count this as a good start. Certainly it all looked very relaxed in the England dressing room on the balcony. As we saw a shot of them a little while ago, Root was happily joking away with somebody. So they clearly feel it was a good toss to win, and they've made a good start of that advantage.
We should say that the after this ball,
As Philander's in, this one's full and straight, and met classically and confidently by Zach Crawley, and there's no run.
So the GPL is open. The prize was it was 54 quid at the start of play. We've had 7 entries so far. Messi Jez has piled in early. It's very unlike
Has he,
Messi Jez to
Bojo?
come in early. He's gone 263. He's always got the threes. He's 263, 273, 283, 293, 303 and 313. And Hombre Nuevo. has, 297.
Oh, okay.
You got half an hour. You know the rules. Pick your number, whatever you want, for the number of runs scored in the entirety of the day. Get it right,
In
and you get the pot.
comes Philander. That is wide and going wider and left. And once again, de Kock, who is standing up to the stumps, flings his arms out to his right and manages that rather confidently. Remember, this is England's 500th test on their travels on tour. So we will have, actually, during the course of the day, some interesting teasers and questions about various records of England on their travels. Keep you on your toes if there are any lulls in the cricket. There's a lot of statistics and highest run scorers, highest wicket takers, most catches taken, all sorts of things on those, but purely looking at England away from home. As in comes Philander. That one does
lovely.
beat the outside edge of a little nudge forward. He played down the line. The ball just faded away and was through to de Kock, 77 miles an hour. So it's not really pace that appears to be causing the greater problems. It's just that little bit of nibble and movement. But it is the end of the over. England are 50 without loss in their 500th away test match. We will have a change.
And
there are two men of distinction in the shape of Gary
and Thingy. And this is how you can help us.
Yes.
We need your alternative cricket commentary, bringing you laughs, bringing you jingles, bringing you joy. We are Gorillas. We need your patreon.com/Gorilla Cricket.
And we're back.
Yeah, you're listening to Gorilla Cricket's coverage of England's Tour of South Africa 2019-20. You join us with half an hour to go of the morning session on day one of the third test. The series, of course, level 1-all. England won the toss and elected to bat at the lovely surroundings of St George's Park, Port Elizabeth, and are 50 for no loss. Dominic Sibley is 21 not out. Zach Crawley is 18 not out. There's been 20 overs so far. I'm Knuckle Mpande. I'll be taking you through till lunchtime on Ball by Ball. I'm joined to my left by Jason G. Hiscox, reading your tweets and Facebook live and YouTube messages, and to my right by Gary Naylor, playing your jingles, and he'll play a jingle to herald the change at the Park Drive end.
I shall, once I can find it.
If your number one project is to have yourself a bride, I think I've got to...
In comes Andrew Norkia, goes wide on the crease, ball's very full, and Dom Sibley clips up to Dane Patterson at mid-on. There is no run. I'll give you the full field as soon as I can. So Faf is trying things. He's switched Werner Philander's ends. He's switched Andrew Norkia's end now from where he was bowling earlier today, but none of South Africa's bowlers have really been able to hold a consistent line and length so far this morning.
Well, both we talked about it in the green room. We said the next sort of major move forward will be when they bring on Maharaj.
Indeed, two slips and a gully. Andrew Norkia in back of a length. Sibley plays this nicely off the back foot, and Norkia does the fielding off his own bowling in the offside. There is no running. Kagiso Maharaj was very badly used in a number of different ways by Faf du Plessis at Cape Town. Was asked to do a nearly impossible job, or a series of nearly impossible jobs, and kept having the plan changed on him, and seemed to be took the brunt of the fact that Faf du Plessis was running out of ideas.
Yeah, we saw earlier that the average first innings at St George's Park is 322. I think England should be looking for at least 100 more than that.
It's much higher than that, I can tell you. In the last 10 years, it's over 400. Norkia in full and blocked by Sibley firmly, and Norkia stretches low to his left to field off his own bowling. There is no run.
Which kind of goes with your contention earlier that about pitches, Gary, that pitches have improved, and therefore people can't rely on pitches degrading quite so much anymore.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think this one will die more and more. It'll get more difficult to score runs, and it may spin on days 4 and 5.
That's what we've been led to believe. Norkia in fourth ball of the over, a good bouncer, which Sibley plays pretty well. Ducks under it and lets it pass through to Quinton de Kock. There is no run.
I mean, there's no real sign of footmarks emerging yet.
But you wouldn't expect that on the morning of day one.
No, sometimes you get a little bit of dusting up, but I don't think it'll be that kind of spin. I think it'll just be the pitch will get grippier as it gets slower.
Should give you some shout-outs from Quick Tracker whilst we're there. Shala Udin says hi. Kiginko Kalia says hi. Santosh Gordon is with us, and also Lalitha Subramanian says hi.
Welcome everybody. Norkia in, and Sibley thinks about playing this outside off stump, then just levers the bat out of the way. It carries on the angle, and Quinton de Kock takes it sort of level with leg stump in that particular axis. There is no run.
You mentioned the South African line, I think, Jason, and they have been too wide too often, and when they've gone onto the stumps, they seem to have veered down the leg side. And I'm just wondering, the stats held for everything these days, so I just wonder, we're 3 parts of the way through the first session of a test match yet. There's been no LBW shout as far as I'm aware.
We'll expound on that a little bit further, perhaps, because Dom Sibley's backed away, having spotted something behind the bowler's arm.
Because I don't recall too many first sessions of test matches without even a shout for LBW.
Or a genuine chance of some form. There's not been really...
Well, there's been that one mistimed pull shot that Crawley sort of looped over mid-on. That's pretty much been the only chance of note. Nokia in last ball over the over, and that does discomfort Sibley a little bit, who wasn't quite sure whether to play or leave. Eventually got the bat out of the way of the line of the ball, and just in time through to Quinton de Kock. There is no run. A maiden for Anrich Nokia, England 50 for no loss.
Where exactly were we really 20 minutes behind on tweets? Okay, so Martin Jones gives us his 11, which is Cosgrove, Shazad, he needs a number 3, Jesse Ryder, Richard Levy, Samit Patel, Raheem Cornwall, Robbie Freeling, Rory Kleinfeld, Onias Bascom and Latish Malinga for the fat but not necessarily agile.
That's pretty good. I mean, it's a slot Imsy in there at 3, and I think we're pretty much done, aren't we? Well, Jason, you were calling it. When would this change happen? And it has happened. On from the duck pond end, replacing Werner Philander, who only bowled 2 overs, is this man.
There's a bowler from South Africa. Started up bowling pace, but he made the switch. I wonder why, but he's known as Keshav.
Yeah, Keshav Maharaj bowling with a slip and a short leg, a backward point, a cover, an extra cover, kind of in a catching position, quite straight, a mid on, a mid-wicket, a square leg, as he's in. Bolt drags this short, and Zach Crawley is very nearly holed up to Faf du Plessis first ball. He dragged it short, it didn't really bounce. Crawley was rightly onto the back foot and swatted it away, but it just bounced short of Faf du Plessis at mid-wicket. Yeah, the other fielder on the leg side is at sort of backward square leg. Down the track comes Crawley. That's nicely bowled by Maharaj. Crawley came down the track a little bit too early, and Maharaj dropped his length a little bit shorter, got it to drift into the pads of Crawley. It did turn a little bit. Crawley adjusted well, though, and blocked it out into the offside. There is no run. A little bit of turn already.
There's definitely grip in this surface.
It is very dry, as we were told earlier. Maharaj in a little bit of grip again, but this doesn't bounce at all. And Maharaj puts hands on heads as Crawley stands up tall and blocks off the back foot into the leg side. There is no, and we've been told that the Eastern Cape's been in drought conditions for a little while, so I think that's
for about 4 years
contributing. Yes. In comes Maharaj, tosses this up. Crawley whips it nicely into the onside. Again, can't beat Faf du Plessis at mid wicket. There is no run. Interesting from Keshav Maharaj. He's definitely decided to toss the ball up and try and take all the pace off the ball.
Yeah, a bit of a test this for Crawley, particularly if he has ambitions to go to Sri Lanka. He'll do well to get through this.
Down the track comes Crawley. Again, Maharaj sees him coming, but again, Crawley adjusts to the change of length and just blocks it into the onside. There is no run.
Yeah, it's good. He's not just allowing Maharaj here to settle into his line and length. Okay, he's bowled 5 dot balls, but Crawley's shown not so much attacking intent so much as a willingness to make length himself.
And he goes back in the crease this time and punches off the back foot, but can't beat Dean Elgar extra cover. A very interesting maiden indeed, Keshav Maharaj, England 50 for no loss.
Beijing Duck says, cracking morning for spotted cricket. Don't forget Dwayne Leverock in that 11. PJ Mead says, ankle injuries can be pretty bad. McGrath was out for ages with his ankle after stepping on a ball, and Ed Joyce was out for 6 weeks after going over in a T20.
He was only out for 3 weeks, I think, McGrath. He missed 2 test matches.
He missed 1 test, then came back, then went out again. He wasn't playing at the Oval, was he?
Yeah, and he missed the 2 test matches England won, I think, in that series.
Possibly. Messages reminds us that India are going MSD list, talking about the BCC annual player contracts.
Yeah, no central contract for MS Dhoni for the first time in what must be almost 15 years for MS Dhoni. I think the end is nigh.
Martin Lawrence says it's Aaron Finch who's normally captain for the Renegades. The TV umpire says Sterling can play in that number 3 position. Beijing Deck says, don't forget our very own Mike Gatting.
Yeah, there's plenty in there. Nokia in, bowling to Dominic Sibley, who blocks this one solidly back to the bowler. There is no run.
Peter Reed suggests Imran ul Haq.
Yeah, there's a lot out there. There's no particular build you need to be successful at cricket.
I think it was in Bob Willis's 8 wickets at Headingley where Mike Gatting took an extraordinary catch.
Fantastic.
Where he ran in from mid-on
and
scooped it up.
It sort of slid, didn't he? 2 slips in the gully and a short mid-wicket as Anrich Nokia in. This one rather dies outside off stump, and Sibley had visions of punishing it away to the cover boundary, but ends up just blocking it to point. There is no run.
Caught it and then somersaulted over it to make sure that he didn't lose the ball.
It's a very 1980s style of running in catch. I think you'd see a fielder now diving.
Yeah, we've seen only 3% of deliveries full from seamers.
In this, that was in this test match. We see compared to where the seamers take their wickets, the general length here is much fuller. But South Africa have been too short and too wide. That's a good delivery from North here, back of a length, but it does seam in sharply to Dom Sibley when hits him just above the uncomfortables and drops down into the offside. Yeah. There is no run.
They haven't really attacked the top of off stump, have they? They've been too wide, I think, too often. That one did get up though. That's the first ball that's really
he inside edged that very little, slightly.
I think it came off the seam sharply, but we're seeing that we did a podcast. I did a podcast the other day that was released yesterday with Daniel Gallen saying that the length has to be fuller at Port Elizabeth because it's that little bit short, because it's that little bit slower. But we've seen this morning that South Africa have been generally too wide and too short.
Yeah.
Nohir in, bowls a bouncer which goes down the leg side and nicely evaded by Dom Sibley. Gets bat and gloves well out of the line of the ball, taken down the leg side by Quinton de Kock. There is no run.
That would have been my guess, that 95% of the deliveries this morning have been missing the stumps, which partly explains why there's been no shouts for LBW, but it partly explains why England have had a bit of an armchair ride here, the 2 openers, because I just don't think they've been challenged enough.
No, I don't think that...
Hit it or leave it is the question that's been asked.
I don't think South Africa have adapted to the conditions. I think they're bowling like they would at Joburg or Cape Town or Centurion. Where that edge behind is more of a factor. Nokia forces Sibley onto the back foot. He plays it quite comfortably, though, into the offside. Zubair Hamza comes around from gully to field. So England haven't scored a run for the last 17 deliveries, but haven't looked in too much trouble.
No, I think one of the things that we're seeing is even from the pacemen, because the pitch is so dead and so slow, that once the ball is back of a length or short, there's time to adjust. So we've seen Sibley get himself into a couple of slightly dodgy positions, but still be able to withdraw the bat from the ball.
Last ball of the over, and Sibley goes up and over slip. I'm not sure he was intending to get it that fine. He was trying to crash that over point. It comes off the top edge and flies way over Rossi van der Dussen at first slip. The run of dots is broken with a top edge for 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
He was definitely late on that, Dominic Sibley. He doesn't quite cut the ball in the orthodox manner. It's a slightly sort of jabby cut to drive that he plays, which looks very good when it comes off, but that was a genuine top edge. No chance of a catch. Yeah, but that is the first runs for 17 deliveries. England 54 for no loss.
I think there is margin for error with the uppercut there, because you get any bat on the uppercut at all and it's going away through the vacant third man area. So it's a pretty safe shot, but it was more edge than middle for sure.
Whilst we're here, Messenger is talking about the BBL. Says, frankly, the BBL is making a joke of itself. 52 qualifying games, which eliminate only 3 of the 8 teams. Then 5 finals to determine the winner. Way too long. But we're stuck with it because of the TV contracts.
They tried to put in a situation where every team plays every team home and away, which makes some sense, but it has elongated the tournament. Maharaj into Zach Crawley, who goes down to try and sweep very fine. I think he's just got himself outside the line as Keshav Maharaj goes for a big LBW appeal. He missed that by some distance, Zach Crawley. Bruce Oxenford behind the blue mirrored sunglasses says no dice in terms of the LBW appeal, and they scurry down the other end.
I'm a bit disappointed, really, because I was hoping for a whole session without an LBW shot.
In fact, it came off glove, I think, in the end. Yeah, maybe just off the bottom part of the glove. It's been given as runs, certainly. It would have missed off stump, so South Africa didn't bother reviewing it.
He's a tall man, and that front pad was a long way down the pitch, so it's a brave man who gives him out. Of course, umpires will these days.
Well, I mean, they will. It started on off stump, though, and was turning past off stump. Sibley facing up to Maharaj. Maharaj had him on toast in Centurion, but he played him very well, did Dominic Sibley at Cape Town. He'd defended this full delivery into the leg side. There is no run. We're seeing, yes, there was a bit of glove. It brushed the underside of that top glove. Sibley's got to be Crawley a little bit careful, sweeping from straight, or paddle sweeping from straight. That one turns sharply from Kagiso Maharaj. A lovely delivery. It drifted into middle stump and then turned past the outside edge. Sibley doing well, though, playing the original line, not following it with his hands, beaten on the outside edge. There is no run.
Yeah, Knuckle, you'll be better at me than this because you see more subcontinental cricket than I do, but this almost looks like a subcontinental day one pitch.
A little bit. I mean, there are subcontinental pitches and some continental pitches. This one also turns, but Sibley was ready for this and plays it off the back foot to Faf du Plessis at extra cover. There is no run. I think Indian pitches have got quite a lot quicker in recent years, and obviously there's a lot of variation across a massive country. But I think this pitch is so dry, there is only so much you can do with it. This is too full and too much down the leg side, and Sibley turns it sharply into the leg side. A really good take from Quinton de Kock as Nokia flings in a throw from square leg. They came through for the single. Dom Sibley moves to 26.
Feels a bit like kind of Nagpur or Ahmedabad, one of those pitches that you really flog yourself to death as a bowler trying to get something out of it, but turns a bit.
Yeah, I mean, as I'll come to that after this ball, as last ball of the over, Crawley's well forward and smothers any spin off the outside part of the bat. It goes to Werner Philander at a backward point, comes short third man. There is no run. 2 runs off the over. England 56 for no loss. Nagpur is also very dry. It's not drought conditions, but it is very dry. It's right in the geographical centre of India. It's very hot. So you can either do one of 2 things with the pitch. You can under-prepare it. It means that it turns sharply, as South Africa found when they were in India, not this time but the time before, or the pitch becomes completely dead like it was when England were there in 2012. Ground staff have only a certain number of levers they can pull, I think, in these conditions. But it's day one. It's not even lunch yet. A long way to go, Jace.
Mia Katie says, talking about the cricket injuries, Chris Holt broke a rib and ruled himself out of a test by sneezing too violently.
That's a hell of a sneeze.
Wasn't it Derek Pringle who got injured getting out of the shower or the bath?
Nokia in back of a length as we muse on Derek Pringle getting out of the bath. Back of a length. And Sibley pushes it into the offside. Rabada fields at straightish mid-off. There is a wideish mid-off, rather. There is no run. Sorry, a single. What am I talking about? Sibley moves to 27.
Says to us, don't forget this famous Jefferson quote, and sends a meme saying, never believe quotes on the internet just because they're on a picture with Thomas Jefferson.
Yes, indeed. Some friends of ours picked up by the host broadcaster of the Lear Club, or presumably the Lee Club, as in the Lear Valley, and Dutch Bird Kate, her Yorkshire flag flying or at least being affixed proudly to the stands at St George's Park as Nokia is in 2 slips and a gully, and a shortish, straightish extra cover is in place. Crawley leaves this outside off stump. There is no run. And we've seen our first sight this morning of the famous St George's Park band, brass band, parping proudly in the stands.
Parping. That's definitely a Viz description.
I think so. Johnny, famous Johnny from Viz. Yeah, Nokia, for a man of his size and a man of broad shoulders, he sure does slump them, doesn't he?
Yeah, a little bit. A lot of tall men have a habitual stoop as he's in past the umpire and bowls back of a length, and Crawley ducks under it as it passes through where his head would have been. There is no run.
We've seen nothing round the wicket to Crawley. I'd definitely be inclined, if I was Nokia or Rabada, with so little happening with the pitch, just to go round the wicket, change the angle, attack the body.
Leg gully, short leg?
Yeah, get under the armpit there. Nobody likes that ball that rears up a little bit under the armpit. Of course, round the wicket, right armour to right hander, the ball seems to come at you that much earlier. So I definitely want to try that.
Slightly in your blind spot, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the Wagner approach to left-handers.
It is, yes. As Nohir is in a very full delivery, which Crawley turns very nicely into the onside, times the closing of the face well, gets it past that shortish mid-wicket and out to the sweeper at square leg, who has time to come round to his left to field, and they come through for a single.
What I liked about that shot from Crawley is that it's a rare ball that's on the stumps, and obviously the eyes light up because it's a run-scoring opportunity, but he didn't try to hit that too hard. He picked it as a length ball, wasn't there for the drive, so he was happy to nudge it into a gap and take a single. And I think for a man who's been 20 off 75 balls and has had periods when he's been bogged down, that's pretty mature play.
Yes, indeed. Short ball that does rise on Dom Sibley. He doesn't play it particularly well, sort of tries to ride the bounce and ends up rather fending it through where a leg gully would have been. All on the ground, though, and they come through for a single. That'll encourage Anrich Nokir.
Yeah, he got the hands high, Sibley there, which I think is the best part of the shot, and he is very good at that. His technique is very much his own, but there's lots of things in Sibley's technique which are good. And one of the good things about his technique is his hands do go very high, which means, of course, the ball does drop.
He transfers his weight very well to front and back foot, which is good to see. And obviously, his in terms of being still at the point of release and having eyes over the ball, it's all very good. Zach Crawley gets himself a little bit tangled up as he tries to play this down into the leg side. We've had a couple where he's missed them and it's come off thigh pad and rolled away for 4. This, I think, missed everything down the leg side. A half appeal from Quinton de Kock, but nothing not backed up by anybody else. No review, and indeed no run. England, after 25 overs, 59 for no loss. Just say news from South African first-class cricket in a first-class game in Pietermaritzburg between the Lions and the Dolphins. For the Lions, Temba Bavuma has scored 100.
He's been out of nick, so that's good to hear.
If they lose this match, they'll be clamouring for him to come back, but that's still probably a bit too early.
Yes, there's a lot of talk, of course. We did touch on this in the podcast about where South Africa are in terms of transforming the country from the apartheid regime, and how they perhaps aren't as far, certainly aren't as far ahead as they should be. Maharaj is in around the wicket to Dom Sibley. This one doesn't turn, comes off the inside part of the bat. On the bounce to short leg it goes. There is no run. That is my final verbal plug for the podcast. We'll go and listen to it, though. It's on iTunes and all of the pod-catching apps as we speak. This one's held back nicely by Maharaj, and Sibley has to wait as he presses forward, blocks into the offside. Maharaj fields off his own bowling. There is no run.
Well, I think if Big Vern is batting at 7 in this match, that's a notch too high for him, so I think there should be room for Buffalo.
Ooh, this one comes off the inside part of the bat. This one didn't turn either. Simply sort of lunged forward at it, as he tends to do against the spinners. He's been slightly troubled by left arm spin in his brief Test career. Admittedly, those are the only specialist spinners he's had to face so far. Santner and now Maharaj takes the single gratefully as it takes the 2, in fact, as it squirts behind square on the leg side. The man at backward square leg has to accompany and chase.
But of course there is danger in playing just 4 bowlers for South Africa, because I think everybody knows that Vernon Philander's stamina is his weak point.
This one drifts outside the eye line of Dom Sibley. He does play outside of his eye line to the spinners, which he doesn't do against the fast bowlers. He plays this nicely enough to cover. There is no run. Won't be a problem for South Africa, of course, after this series when Vernon Philander retires. But yeah, they do like to play 5 bowlers, which I applaud. I like the thing of trying to get wickets first, but it does mean fewer opportunities for middle order batters. This is full and on the pads, and Sibley turns it defensively into the leg side. There is no run.
For a Callis now, I think this is what you would
For
say.
a Callis at any time in history, yes. Last ball of the over from Kushal Maharaj. Holds this back a little bit too short, though, and Sibley plays with the turn, forces off the back foot, well fielded at cover. There is no run. 2 runs off that over, England 61 for no loss.
Ravinair informs us that this is only England's 9th opening stand of 50 or more in the first innings of a test since the start of 2010. Highest of 99. And
sorry, that stat in full?
This is only England's 9th opening stand of 50 or more in the first innings of a test since the start of 2010.
Wow.
and the highest one there is 99. For comparison, South Africa have 14 in the same period, with 6 century stands.
Yeah, that shows the consistency, particularly of Dean Elgar.
And Graham Smith.
The
What have we got? What else have we got, Jace?
Lawrence Jameson sends us a picture of KP talking to Matt Pryor and they're shaking hands and conversing with each other. And he says that hopefully Swan's going to be next. Is that
the old guard or the oldish guard? They're not that
no,
old.
I think it's rapprochement post
yes.
Peterson's book.
Cheese.
Yes, indeed. The cheese no longer stands alone. Nokia continuing from the Duck Pond end, from the Park Drive end, and Crawley plays him off the front foot into the offside. There is no run.
What I was reaching for as South African all-rounder is that I always like the look of Chris Morris, who's genuinely quick.
He is quick, but he doesn't really do much with the ball, which is what happened when Ben Stokes got 258.
Yeah, he's out of favour in the white clothing with the red ball. Man has gone back on the hook at square leg. This is very solidly played by Zach Crawley, who stretches forward to the length delivery and blocks it with the full face of the bat. There is no run. He does look very comfortable off the front foot, befitting a man of 6'5".
Yeah, he definitely has a lot of Graham Hick in his in what I'm seeing from Zach Crawley.
Not as big as Graham Hick. He's quite lanky, Zach Crawley.
Yeah, he's more kind of and taller. It's almost like it's slightly redistributed Graham Hick into a longer,
slightly stretched
body.
Him on a rack.
Yeah, but he definitely just has that look of.
As Nokia is in trying to force Crawley onto the back foot, but this is too easy for Crawley to duck under, taken by Quinton de Kock. There is no run. Should say you have only 1 minute left to enter the GPL.
Yeah, with the glass half full, he looks very solid when he comes forward. With the glass half empty, he looks heavy-footed when he comes forward. And they, of course, are the pros and cons of.
And it's all subjective, depending on what you think the pitch is. Doing or not.
Yeah, this may well be the last over before lunch. Only 3 balls left of it. As we see Michael Holding talking to Johnny Bairstow and a member of the England backroom staff.
So we've lost 3 overs in this session, despite Maharaj bowling for some of it. That would be 9 overs short in the day. They'll have half an hour to catch up, but we'd still be losing overs. ICC have really got to do something about this.
Well, I mean, for the World Test Championship, penalties for slow overeats are pretty stringent. This is a nothing delivery outside off stump that lollops gently outside off stump and dies apologetically on its way through to Quinton de Kock. Well, there is no run.
I would just say to the batsman, do you want these 3 overs now? And just every time 30 overs are not bowled in a session, it goes to the batsman to see whether they want them or not. I think in this instance, England probably would want them. There are other times, I think, just after you've lost a wicket where you might not want them. But I think it's the batsmen have the expectation of getting 30 overs, and it should be their right to get those should they want them.
Short leg is in place, a forward short leg. It's Peter Milan. That's a good bouncer from Anrich Nortje. Makes Crawley duck and sway inside the line of the ball. He does that well, but he was forced into doing something by the pace and carry from Anrich Nortje, who's slightly sort of kissing the pitch a little bit. This is his home ground, Port Elizabeth, saying that he has his best first-class figures here, 6 for in the innings, 9 for in the match for his franchise. He knows the conditions very well. Ball not too far away in Altenhagen. Last ball probably of the session. 2 slips and a gully. Backward point cover, short leg, mid on. Man back on the hook, and Crawley defends solidly / heavy-footedly from off stump up to mid on. There is no run, and that is lunch on day 1, and England can be very happy indeed with their morning's work. They lunch at 61 for no loss. Dominic Sibley is 30 not out. Zach Crawley is 20 not out. They faced almost an identical number of deliveries, and none of the South African seamers really were able to hold a consistent line and length. Nokia found a little bit of joy bowling back of a length and quite tight to off stump, but he and Philander and Patterson on debut and Kagiso Rabada were all too short and too wide for most of the session. Keshav Maharaj caused some problems in his 3 overs. The ball is turning already before lunch on day one, but South Africa have got to buck up their ideas in the second session. We'll let Jason catch up on tweets, then I'll read the card, and then we'll get off for the session break.
Grits and Grats quite flatteringly compares me to a quite somewhat bewildered Murray Walker. Mike Mihal Wood says, I'm reading Consumer Insights for 2030 at work. What do we think cricket will look like then? Spinner resurgence as pitches dry out due to climate change? Players with robotic arms?
Robotic arms?
Yeah. Well, and it's always the case with all these futurists that they make masses of predictions and people only remember the ones that go right.
Indeed, yeah.
Maniki says, Mark Cosgrove has been mentioned and the Fats but Agile 11. As always known as Too Fat Shame Warns by me.
Not Mark Cosgrove?
Yes. Dizzy Dover comes up with a good one I hadn't thought about. Arjuna
Ranatunga, yes. The recipient of the sledge, you can't have a runner because you're fat.
Yeah. Ted Moore comes in with Ravi Rampal.
Yeah, still doing fine things for Derbyshire.
Yeah. A wicket-taking bowler. Not necessarily economic bowler, but definitely a wicket.
Yeah, has been through his entire career.
Spangley Sai says, maybe getting a reputation at work. Someone sent me a gif of what they thought was a random bit of cricket. I informed then it was a Clark being bowled by Anderson for naught in the first Ashes Test in 2013. They're now looking at me as if I was a nerd or something.
That was an extraordinary piece of bowling that James Anderson produced to dismiss the then Australian captain.
Is that the one where he went back and said, well, you asked me to do it?
Oh, it was one of those classic Jimmy outswingers that starts on off stump, curves into middle stump, and then swings and seams away viciously at the last minute to take off stump. Michael Clark looking absolutely dumbfounded, and yes, it is in the GIF keyboard.
Beji Jack says, honorary skipper Cheese once split and dislocated his little finger attempting to catch during a 6-years tournament. Played another 4 days with 4 stitches in it, even taking a boundary catch.
Well, that's brave/silly.
And Mark Cork says, you mentioned the great Graham Pollock earlier. Speaking of left-handers, elegant and otherwise, here's an interesting comparison and send us a graph with Smith's and Pollock's averages over time and test matches, which seem to follow each other quite similarly. I'm presuming that's Graham Smith.
Yeah, Graham Smith, of course, played a lot more test cricket than Graham Pollock ever managed. But yeah, it's an interesting comparison. Graham Smith had a very good start to his test career, but in both body size and in terms of style, there's a lot of ways to play this great game of ours.
And just some very final shout-outs from Crick Tracker. Mohammed Faye says, how are you all friends? Bobby Kumar says hi. And Mashudu Umfadza says hello.
Hello. And on that note, we will sign off for the morning session. England 61 for no loss. As I said, Dominic Sibley 30 not out, Zach Crawley 20 not out. The bowling figures: Werner Philander 6 overs 3 maidens, none for 9. Dane Patterson on test debut 5 overs, none for 10. Kagiso Rabada 6 overs 2 maidens, none for 9. Ulrich Norkier 7 overs 2 maidens, none for 21. But I think actually Norkier has probably been the best of South Africa's seamers, and I think those figures flatter Philander, Patterson and Rabada. A lot too short and too wide outside off stump. And Kesha Maharaj 3 overs 1 maiden, none for 4, has been the most likely of South Africa's bowlers to make something happen. There's been 11 extras, 8 of which have been leg byes in 2 sets of 4, 1 no ball and 2 wides. Will join us in half an hour or so. Until then, we will play the podcast that I recorded with Daniel Gowan, the Guerrilla Cricket podcast, talking about this test match, about the state of South Africa's transformation policy and where it stands, and also a little bit on mandatory 4-day tests. Enjoy, and we'll see you in half an hour. The series finally poised, and after ducking and swaying into Shwane and basking in the glory of Table Mountain,